public to avoid group congregation. This meeting shall instead be held virtually using Zoom. Please note that this meeting is being recorded.
Recording in progress.
All the materials for this meeting are available at the following link, which I will provide in the chat. Martha Moore, the Conservation Commission Chair, will facilitate this meeting. Please note that there will be public comments period at the end of each hearing. Each vote during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. We'll begin with roll call attendance. Martha?
Okay, please say your name when I call on you. Andrew.
Andrew Driven, present, member.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, Vice Chair, present.
Bill.
Bill McCants, member, present.
Walter.
Walter Talbot, associate.
And Tony.
Tony Woodalakis, associate, present.
Okay, so that, and Martha Moore, present, chair. So that makes 4 of us who are able to vote tonight, and that does constitute a quorum. Our agenda tonight includes hearings about a proposed Eagle Scout project. We're continuing the Zero Small Lane till the next meeting. Ooh, I just messed that up. Okay, we're going to be hearing from 2 Maple Street, 16 Beverly is continued, 22 Small Lane, 18 Whittier, 198 Haverhill, 31 Wilson, and the trail off of Lynetta Lane. Possibly the Birch Meadow, Meadowbrook easement access vote. And we'll also be discussing and voting on next year's chair and vice chair. We have a couple of certificate of compliance requests, and I don't think we're going to have time to have a review of our wetland regulations at this meeting. And we have 1 set of minutes to approve. That's a full agenda, so we want to try to move quickly through as many hearings as we can and try to get out of here. Hopefully 10 o'clock would be lovely. Okay, is the Eagle Scout Charlie here to present his project?
Charlie, just raise your hand, and anyone who's here with Charlie tonight, could you please just raise your hand using the reactions button, and I'll let you in.
Ah, there he is. And we do have somebody in the waiting room still.
Charlie, you're able to turn on your video and you can speak. I've made you a co-host.
Thank you so much. Am I good to start?
Just make sure no one else here is with you.
I think it's just going to be me tonight, unfortunately.
Great. You can share your screen and start.
Except we
Thank
do
you so
have
much.
somebody in the waiting room, Chuck.
Okay, well, I'll take care of that. You can still start, Charlie.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let me just figure out this screen share. I'm sorry. Can you see this all right?
Yes.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Charlie Mace, and I'm an Eagle Scout with Troop 702. And my proposed Eagle project is the Bear Meadow Bridge. So for those of you who don't know, Bear Meadow is a beautiful woodland area located in the northern part of Reading. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yes.
So this here is Home Goods, and this is Dandelions for those trying to get their bearings. This is the Wood End Cemetery, and my proposed bridge, this orange dot right here, and this highlighted blue box is the Bear Meadow Woods. So my project's going to be about there. This is the current bridge that's at the site. As you can see, it's only 2 feet wide. It is not wide enough to fit with the town's regulations, and it's in very bad shape, very rotten, and just very unsafe. So my goal is to remove all of this and add a much better, much improved, much safer bridge. So here is the map of where the trails are. I did make this map, so it's probably not perfect, but it's as close as I could get. So these black lines are the trails. These brown boxes are the bridges that are currently in there. And the orange box is the bridge that I plan on building. So this right here is the proposed bridge. To get certain resources inside to the site with making the least impact on the environment, I plan on parking our vehicles on the concrete loop that goes around the far end of the cemetery and carrying tools and materials from our vehicles into the woods from the trail and building them on the site. And they will be disposed, they'll be carried out the same way. And there's two possible methods of disposal. One is either loading them up into a box truck that a member of my troop has access to, and that we've used on several projects in the past, and taking them to a determined site given to me by the DPW, or possibly leaving them at a little industrial spot on the side of the cemetery. So those are two options for disposal. I do not know which one to follow yet. I was told to tell DPW closer to the beginning of my start of the construction. So those are how I'm going to dispose of it. And here is a picture of what construction will likely look like. This is a similar design to what I will be building. The only main difference that I noted was that I will make sure my scouts have pieces of wood that they can walk on to spread out their weight and minimalize their impact on the environment. So that's kind of what I had for you guys. Are there any questions on anything?
Sure, Martha, are you?
Yeah. Are there any members of the commission who have questions for Charlie? Brian?
Yeah, actually, Charlie, you answered most of mine, which is good. So the one remaining question I have is what's the timeline for doing this? When are you expecting to be out there?
So my hope is that I'll be able to begin construction in the early fall. Hopefully I'll have all the permissions, all the materials ready by the end of summer. So I hope to begin construction in the early fall.
Okay, actually, I do have one other one, sorry.
Okay.
In the past, there hasn't always been good cleanup of excess materials and what have you. So as an observation, please have that as part of your focus, is to make sure you leave it clean.
Okay.
And having said that, that's all for me, Martha.
Okay, Tony?
Thanks. I like the idea of this project. I'm wondering, are you going to be doing this by yourself, or will there be other people there helping you?
So for an Eagle project, I'll be leading it. I'll be making all the planning, all the preparations, but I will have several other scouts from my troop, from kids my age to kids much lower, that I'll have to lead through helping me build the bridge. So I'll be in charge of all of it, but I will have helpers actually constructing it.
Okay, that sounds good. That's a good leadership project.
Mhm.
I would suggest keeping an eye on the amount of people you have. I think the more people you have out there, the greater chance there is of some impact to the vegetation that's around it. Probably more than you may realize just from walking around or stomping around. I'm wondering if through the tree fund, Chuck, if there might be resources accessible to obtain some native vegetation seed that could be applied once the work is done to help the restoration in any areas that may have been tamped down a little too much.
So so the tree fund currently we don't have access to once it's donated to. So that's under the control of the forestry department, and we need to wait until the next fiscal year to have any money in our budget. But certainly Charlie could come back with a request after July or in July and ask for some sort of request for the seeds or the I guess the wetland seed mix. Is that what you're suggesting we buy?
Either a wetland seed mix or maybe some plantings.
Sure. Yeah, if Charlie would come back, we could probably entertain that request.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Great. Thank you.
Of
Good
course.
luck.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. This is a great project. Thanks for taking this on. My question is, I was just confused when you were describing what you'll be doing, are you going to be removing a part of the existing bridge and then, or is this just a new piece that's going to be adding on to the existing one?
So this one is a bit of a special situation. I do have here, let me go back to the picture here so it's easier to see. There is a bridge that is still usable there that crosses the stream. It's this little brown one. So I'm going to be removing the orange one and then putting a new piece in where the orange one was. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah. So the orange is also existing. That's the part that's in.
Yes, that's
where
the
it's-
one.
Okay.
That's this one. This is the orange one that's got to go.
A little 2-footer. Cool. And then, are you going to be replacing it with wood or with composite decking?
I'm going to be using composite decking.
Okay, then my only thought, since it's got the plastic, when you cut it, it has all the little extra pieces, whatever that's called. If you do the cutting by like the parking lot where you're stationed rather than on site, so you could contain that stuff, that would be my preference.
Yeah.
It probably won't always be, because there'll be times where you're just going to want to cut it right on site, but for the majority of the cutting, it could happen kind of where your staging area is by the parking area.
Yeah,
That'd be my preference.
I would even cut it over a tarp so you can contain the cuttings and clean them up a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll make note of that.
And that's my only suggestion. Good luck.
Thank you.
Charlie, when you met with Chuck and I, you were saying that a lot of your construction will be pre-done in a building and then brought to the site. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I'm going to break it up into sections. Maybe like 3 or 4 sections, I'm thinking, based on the size. And those will be ready to be put in on the day to fasten the construction and make everything smoother.
So you won't actually be cutting your composite decking out there in the field at all?
So
Mostly not.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think about that part yet. For the most part in the past, all of the projects, we put the Trex or the decking on there on the site. The pre-built parts are just underneath and anything supporting it. So I will have to look into that and see if I can get them pre-built. I don't know why they don't put the decking on there before it starts. So I will look into that.
Or at least if you could saw them to the right lengths ahead of time and
Yeah.
do your sawing indoors where you can contain the sawdust.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Walter,
First, let me say congratulations on achieving the rank of Eagle. Very few of us have done that. I earned mine almost 60 years ago, and it's something I can brag about today. And it'll stick with you, and you can use it in job interviews and other parts in your life.
Mhm.
My only question is, looking at the original picture we saw, one of the pictures, the stringers, what was the material of the stringers?
For the bridge I'm putting in, or the current one.
The one you're putting in.
So I believe the stringers, I have drawings. Let me find my drawings. I believe the stringers are just 4x4 pieces of wood.
Pressure treated or just,
I don't know the specifics. I think pressure treated, probably, yes.
Yeah, the trail committee specs out 4x4 pressure treated ground contact.
thank you. Good
They're
luck.
heavy.
Thank you.
They're heavy.
anybody else on the commission with questions? Okay, Chuck, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to know if you had talked to Mike Hannaford prior to our meeting beginning of this week.
I did look into it, but I wasn't able to find his email. On the town website, I think I found some people. I was able to find people in the DPW, but I wasn't able to find his exactly. So that was one thing I was going to ask, like if I should email someone else from the DPW. I wasn't able to find his in particular.
I'll send you his email and phone number.
Thank you so much.
That was my only question.
Okay, Chuck, there are 3 people in the waiting room. And are there any members of the general public who are here who have a comment or question about this project? Please go to the reactions button and use the raised hand function. Ari Greenberg.
Hi, I just have a comment. I'm echoing what Walter said. Congratulations. I also am an Eagle Scout and can appreciate the amount of planning that goes into a project like this, and very impressed that you've thought through all of these issues. So good luck and hope it goes smoothly. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or concerns from the commission, or are we ready to vote? Okay, do we close the hearing and then vote separately?
So it's not a hearing, but,
Okay.
and this is going on the existing town-wide trail permit. So you can just vote to approve, Charlie's project.
Beautiful. Do I have a motion in that manner?
This is Brian. Make a motion for us to vote on approval of the project in Bear Meadow.
Do we have a second?
This is Andrew, I'll second. And I'm in favor, Andrew Driven.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. So that's 4-0, and the associate members are not able to vote. Thank you very much, Charlie. And good luck with your project.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
And just for the record, I did call the meeting to order at 7:06. I forgot to say that out loud. And I assume we have the same person doing our minutes for this meeting as the last one. Chuck?
We'll see. Sorry to
Okay.
be so vague, but, yes, probably.
All right, so I won't recruit a volunteer to do minutes for this meeting.
We have a minute, yeah, we'll have a minutes person each meeting
Okay,
from now on until further notice, I guess is the best way to say it.
okay. All right, the next one is 0 Small Lane. Has that already been continued, or do we need to continue that tonight?
That's a new request to continue to July 12th.
Can I have a motion in that
This is
vein?
Brian. Make a motion to continue 0 Small Lane to July 12th.
This is Bill McCants. I second.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, moving on to 2 Maple Street. I will read the blurb while Chuck lets people in. Continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by John Sideropoulos pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for the construction of a stone patio and placement of a utility shed. All of the work is within a buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessors Map 16, Lot 111, DEP file number 270-0769. All right, I see David Cowell is with us. Is there anybody else who is with you, David?
Hi, I believe the applicant, John Sideropoulos, is joining us as well, but I'm on to present the project.
Okay,
I think John's, I'm going to try
John's
John's
iPhone,
iPhone.
maybe?
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, I am present.
Oh, great. Good, John. So, I'm sorry, Chuck or the chair, do you have the plans that we sent able to project on the screen?
Sure. I'll put those on the screen and you can just start. It'll take me a second to get to them.
All right, no worries. My situation is not ideal. I was trying to join from my laptop computer. I'm having some tech issues, so I'm joining from my phone. So I don't have the same share screen ability, but I trust Chuck can share it. So just to remind the commission, this is a continued public hearing. We came in once about 6 weeks ago in request to develop a patio and put a shed at 2 Maple Street. We're asking for a waiver here because in the existing condition, the house itself is existing non-conforming, having been built within 35 feet to the wetland. So we did have some encroachment into the 25-foot and 30-foot. That's its conversion of manicured lawn into patio. And what we offered to do was to provide compensatory mitigation at a 1-to-1 ratio of square footage for every square foot of patio that we have that's non-conforming. We would offer a square foot of restoration. And we had talked about doing that restoration off property on the abutting land, which is the town-owned conservation land. So I just wanted to run through the checklist of items the Conservation Commission had asked us to do since the previous hearing. I did go out and do a site walk. One of the concerns expressed by the commission previously was that the calling into question the wetland line at the limit of lawn as it transitions into wetland. It was noted that there was some skunk cabbage that was observed sprouting up in the lawn, and whether or not the wetland line should change. So I did go back out there. I poked around out there, looked at soils where some of that skunk cabbage was coming up. I moved one single flag, did move about 15 feet. It's been revised here on our site plan to encompass some of that skunk cabbage and the limit of hydric soils out there. And that pushed the buffer zone and associated setback zones out just a little hair on the left-hand side. We were asked, once we have the 25-foot no disturb zone on the plans, to look for opportunity to shrink footprint of the patio, which we did. Once we had the 25-foot on there, we took 4 feet off the left-hand side of that patio. We took 2 feet off the front-hand side. If you look at the plan where the patio is now, you guys can see around the perimeter, there's a little bit of shading. That hatch type is what the original patio footprint was. This is a reduced surface area footprint. As it is with this reduced surface area footprint, we still have some impact into the 35 and 25-foot setback zones. And for that, we're offering 1-to-1 compensation for restoration at the trailhead. Chuck, what's the name of that conservation land? It begins with a P. Is it Pine?
Yes, Pineville Conservation
Pineville.
Area.
Yep.
Right.
So
And
we would.
Dave, hold on just a second. Chuck,
Sure.
I think you must have the original plan up because the patio is still the original. Well, it doesn't show the shading that he's talking about. You've
Can
got.
you zoom
I
into the
see it.
patio a bit, Chuck?
26.
Isn't it right
Yeah.
here?
It's on the left
Oh,
side, the
okay.
bottom side. Yep. So if you zoom in, that's
All
where
right,
we took.
it's just so faint, I couldn't really see it. Okay, fine. Yeah,
So it shaved about 100 square feet off that.
okay, and which flag did you move?
Chuck, it's in the lower left of the frame, the one flag that's up closest to where the silt fence would be now. Again, forgive me that I can't see the plan at the scale you have it broadcast.
There's one right here at
me
the
try to
very
pull it up.
corner of the property.
Yep, the one that's up highest.
There's one right here at the corner of the property.
Yes, yep, that's the one. Yep.
Okay.
That
Okay.
one moved up. That was lower along the property line. That came up about 15 feet. We had the dimensional measurements for it to
All
do
right.
that. So that was the
Thank you.
flag that changed. The patio was reduced in footprint. Chuck, you'll notice you asked me to throw an auger in the ground to see what depth of water table was, and I detailed that on the plan. There's a little call out on the patio that says C note. And again, I can't see it. See note 8 maybe, and then note 8 on the left. If you go up, is it note
Yeah.
8?
Yeah, it says depth to the water table is 2.2, 2 feet,
Yep.
2 inches. That location shown.
All right. So that was in demonstration of where the water table is below the lawn. That was a request that you guys had asked of us. And then as far as restoration is concerned, on this plan, you can see a hatched area that details the square footage centered on the trailhead to Pineville Conservation District. And then I provided you guys with a second plan, or it's an exhibit that provides the restoration notes of what we would propose to do there for trailhead restoration improvements. And that's the second exhibit that I had provided you. Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So this is the restoration exhibit. There's an aerial image centered on the footprint, which is disturbed. When I went out there and I did the site walk, it's a heavily degraded area. It's really ruderal vegetation. It looks like the ground is mostly garlic mustard, which is an invasive species, and it looks a little dumpy. You know, I think that the town had cleared some vegetation out of that area, but they didn't do anything to replant it or make it better. So in any case, our proposal would be to come in there over that square footprint centered at the trailhead. We would scrape out the garlic mustard. We would check the depth of topsoil once the garlic mustard was removed. You remove it by either stripping the top couple of inches or rototilling it to just destroy it. Depth of topsoil would need to be 6 inches. We'll check at that point to see whether or not if there is clean, organic, rich topsoil that's no less than 6 inches, I'd say don't add anything. If there is less than 6 inches of topsoil, I'd say spread some clean, organic, rich topsoil at the surface to provide good, organic, rich growing substrate. I have a planting schedule of suitable native species plants. They're mostly shrubs that I think would fare pretty well in that location. I think I threw chokeberry, black chokeberry, sweet pepper bush, and
Shadbush.
Shadbush. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Amelanchier canadensis. Those are all native species. They're facultative species that will do well in moderately moist soils, not necessarily. We're considering that this is buffer zone restoration, not necessarily wetlands, so the soils aren't that wet. But then I put some herbaceous species in there. And then I carried a blend of 2 different seed mixes. They're native seed mixes by New England Wetland Plants that I think would provide a pretty dense undergrowth of herbaceous species. And I did put a blend of showy wildflower mix in there too. I thought that would add some aesthetic to that being a trailhead and being the forefront on Maple Street. Some of that showy wildflower mix will produce wildflowers that bloom and provide not only native pollinating species, but aesthetic as well. So with that, I think that was all the information. We provided the specifications for the patio paver. It's Ideal Patio Pavers, or Ideal Pavers. That's a brand name. It's very common, Ideal. They have permeable pavers that are suited for this. They have their own installation guide. I provided a copy of that with the additional information submittal that explains how those pavers are installed as well. And with that, I would turn it back to the commission. If you guys have any questions or want to pick my brain, I'm happy to answer.
Bill.
Yes. Thank you, David, for that. So noticing first, it looks like the shed is off the plan. I have that.
Oh,
right?
I didn't even mention that. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That was another big change from the last one. Right. You guys asked us to get the shed out of there. We've looked at alternative locations and found none. So we've gotten rid of the shed, and our request now is for patio only.
Great. And thank you for the discussion of the proposal in Pineville restoration area. Chuck, last time on behalf of the commission, had also asked you to consider possible monitoring of the area. You expressed concern about how long that would last and so forth. Understand that, but my question is, did you give any consideration to that? And I just want to note for the commission, it was not only Chuck saying that there's value in this, but the Mass Association of Conservation Commission actually talks about how a very important service often provided by friends groups is regular monitoring of parcels that have problems with dumping and so on and so forth, and reporting that to the commission. So it really is something to consider. But yeah, David, if you could just speak to whether you had a chance to consider that.
Yes. As far as monitoring is concerned, that is that would be conditioned by the Conservation Commission at your discretion. My recommendation would be 2 years of monitoring it, maybe once or twice a year, a spring and a fall monitoring, which would entail an inspection, and you guys would get a report that would detail the vitality of the native species that were in there to make sure that they survive. Ground cover to make sure that there's greater than 75% ground cover achieved to provide stabilization of soils. Looking for encroachment by invasive species, and oftentimes some management over the first 2 growing season entails some removal of invasive species that begin to encroach into the restoration area. And then following 2 years of monitoring, it's fairly typical for commissions to, at that point, after 2 years of demonstrating that it's on a healthy trajectory, at that point, issuing order of conditions. Certificate of compliance, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Those are
That's
my questions.
Yep. And John had talked with John. It's hard to put it into a formal agreement that John will be a police or a watchdog out there. But John certainly is in a position that if he sees pickup trucks backing up down there and trying to dump, there has been illicit dumping done out there. I'm sure John would be happy to pick up the phone and report. It sounds like since the town had done the vegetation clearing at the frontage with Maple Street, that there has not been as chronic of an issue of dumping, because I think that their sly way of sneaking back there is now opened up, and I think but yeah, again, to answer your questions, yes, the monitoring, and I'm sure John would be happy to report if he sees anything suspect.
Okay, thank you. Brian, you have a question?
Yeah. So in your restoration documentation, you're talking about a restoration ecologist. Do you have one in mind, or is that a bridge you'll cross later?
That would normally be me if John elects to continue retaining Hancock Associates to do it. But the reason I just put qualified ecologist is in the event that John's continued use of Hancock Associates is discretionary. At any point, John could say, I don't want to work with you anymore. And there's, you guys have, there's other qualified ecologists that are qualified to do this sort of monitoring, whether it be LEC Environmental or whether or not it's Ecotech or, another consultant, another ecologist.
Okay.
So that's why I just didn't put Hancock in there.
Yep, no, that's fine. I understand your thinking.
Yeah.
So you talked about the monitoring of the area. Is it a safe assumption that if the monitoring turns up some plants that don't survive, that the applicant would be responsible for replacing them?
Yes, that's a normal condition by the Conservation Commission. I would request that the matrix be a very typical ecological restoration standard is 80% survival. So if you had 30 species and 2 of them died, that may not necessitate replacement of shrubs. But if you had 5 of them die, 6, and now you're below 80% survival rate, then yeah, at that point, I would recommend replacement shrubs, maybe picking a different species than the one that isn't surviving or doing well there.
Yep. Okay.
So,
I know it is typical. I just wanted it on the record that that's the assumption in this case.
Yep.
And the last thing is the pavers you're talking about for the patio.
Yes.
Is the applicant aware of the maintenance requirements for those pavers to keep them functioning properly?
John, again, that's available by Ideal Pavers, maintenance of those things. So I can certainly find the maintenance suggestions by the vendor.
Right. I mean, we often do see or expect to see an operations and maintenance plan for those kind of materials. It may come from the company, or it may be something else that gets put together, but either way, I'd want to see that it's there in a formal way, so it's more likely to get actually done.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, Martha, I'm all set.
All right.
And
Thank you.
Andrew is Andrew there?
Yeah,
With a
I'm
question?
here. Sorry,
there
I couldn't press the button. Thank you for this revised proposal. This is looking very good. My only question is regarding the size, not the size, because that I understand, but the shape and placement of the restoration area.
Yep.
And that may be something that you and Chuck could figure out with more detail, or if it's amenable to everyone, but I love that you're trying to do this. I think this is a great way to give back to the neighboring trail, but I just wonder if maybe something a little bit along the trail itself. So this looks like it's roughly like 15 by 25, maybe. So maybe doing something that's more like, 10, I don't know, just along the trail, or is this like the spot that just really makes most sense? You know the site better than I do, so.
Yeah, and that's why I did take some site photographs that I was hoping to. Again, one of the issues with me that my laptop's giving me trouble when I'm joining from my phone is I don't have those photographs. But on that aerial image, this is centered on a heavily degraded area that is the trailhead, that is the face of this conservation property where the trailhead sign is. And it's just rife with invasive species. Like I said, dominant by garlic mustard. What shrubs and vegetation are there are invasive. It's multiflora rose and species like that, honeysuckles. So it is it's an opportune area, I'd say, to do this. And just by chance, the square footage of the patio just about meets the trail entrance degraded area. Now that's obviously there's a rectangular box where we've highlighted the focus area, but that's it won't just be a box. It'll be 600 surface area centered around the polygon. Well, it's a little amorphic there where the corner is. But and I didn't see the same opportunity further down the trailhead as it gets narrow. We'd be doing trail maintenance along the side of the trail, but not too far off. It does become wetland again, deeper in there. But yeah, this was an area that we had discussed earlier on in concept planning, due to the degraded nature and the opportunity to maximize benefit there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, and thank you for rechecking the wetland line. I also swung by on Tuesday and took another look, and I think that you and I are in agreement at this point, so that's good. And I really appreciate that the restoration area is that patch with all the garlic mustard, because that is a good thing to tackle. So I appreciate that.
Great.
Are there any members of the general public who are here at the meeting tonight who have a question or comment? Use the raise hand function in the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. And if Chuck has any questions or comments, we can hear from him while we wait for members of the public to raise their hand.
Sure, I did. Yeah, Dave, I appreciate the effort put into the entrance of the Pinevale. I also had some questions about the location and how it was going to look with what I thought would be the best use of the square footage that you gave us, which was, I guess, 370 square feet. To my knowledge, the trail is right there also. And the entrance to the Pinevale area is in that area. So when you till it up and then make sure that there's 6 inches of topsoil down there, you're going to have to reestablish the trail from Maple Street to wherever it meets up the existing trail. Is that correct?
No, I looked at the location I have in mind isn't necessarily over the trail itself. But if we were to do any restoration of the actual trail itself, I wasn't planning on touching the trail.
Mm-hmm. Right. So for me, for what I know, I think that what should be, what we should look at is making the trailhead nice. This area over here, which is lawn right now.
What area are you talking about?
I think the area that you've highlighted, it's kind of like a lawn area now.
Oh, God. Let me see if I can find those pictures. It looks terrible, Chuck. It's 100% garlic mustard. It's monocultural.
Well, it's
garlic.
okay because I'm only going to say that I want to be part of, and I want the Trails Committee to be part of what the final look of this area looks like. And if we're going to get 375 square feet of restoration area, I think the people that know it best, which would be the Trails Committee, should have a say in this. We're doing a major boardwalk project at Pineville, and I've been in and out of this place a bunch of times, and I usually almost walk on the applicant's driveway. That's where I thought the trail leads to. So where the square is, to me, is basically where I'm walking. When we see what's screen right of the square, it's a brushy area. That was just cut down last year. No one's walking in that area anymore. So I do think that this is great conceptual picture of what's going on, but it would be good to meet out there and, when you're ready to do the project, and then talk about how we can maximize this restoration area to meet, everyone's expectations.
Yep, I have no problem with that, Chuck. Again, this is a nebulous box thrown on 300 square feet at the trailhead. I have the planting plan and schedule that I've given you guys has. What I do is I look at a square footage and I say, okay, if this is 310 square feet, I want to plant shrubs at 6 foot off centers, I'm going to need 30 shrubs, right? So that's how I come up with the quantity, the planting schedule, and the seed mixes and the specifications will encompass 310 square feet at the trail entrance. You guys are at liberty to microsite where those go in on when they go in, if you want the trail committee to come and have some say in terms of maximizing the what we're offering in terms of micrositing, planting them and putting it in the ground.
Okay, I'll write that down as a condition. My next comment was that I did notice on the ideal permeable pavers, which I hope is on the screen. We're talking about the permeable paver section, that we're digging to a depth of 12 inches. And that 12 inches incorporates the pavers also. So it's really 8-inch base thickness. And I think they show us a picture right there. So from the top of the paver to the bottom, they're not putting in drainage. There's no pipes included in this project, but this just shows aggregate. It shows a detail showing some washed aggregate, and then the pavers, and then what they're putting in between the joints. But between the top of the paver and the base, we're expecting to see 12 inches, and that's consistent with what I've seen in the past. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone has looked through these, because there's another section that talks about just installing these, and it was 6 inches of excavation, and this is for the pervious surface area. So that's really all I had.
All right.
All right, and I just want to point out that stone joint fill has to come right up to the top of the pavers. We've seen other installations where they were skimpy on that fill in between the pavers, and you get seeds and things like that falling in. So you want to make sure the fill comes right up to the top.
All right, that's sound counsel.
All right, and I just would like to put in a request that the monitoring goes for 3 years rather than 2. Other than that, your suggestion of twice a year reports sounds good to me. Okay. I think we didn't get anybody from the general public raising their hand. So this is a notice of intent. So we need to close the hearing, and then we can have further discussion, and then we can have a motion on the request. And I believe this request was for a variance, even though David said waiver. I think what we're really talking is a variance. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I use the term synonymously when I understand there's nuances between the two of them. The variance. Yep.
okay. So is there somebody who's ready to close the hearing?
This is Brian. Make a motion to close the hearing on 2 Maple Street.
Bill McCants, I'll second the motion.
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. So Chuck, do you need us to relist the conditions or have you got them written down for us?
I'll read mine off and then just add to what I've missed. Brian asked for an operation and maintenance plan. I asked for latitude with how to use the 370 square feet of restoration area and combination of the Trails Committee and the Conservation Commission looking at that and deciding on a final approach to the trailhead for Pine Vale. A 3-year monitoring report. And that's all I had. Oh,
Anybody?
a 3-year monitoring report with review twice per year.
Did anybody have any requests that Chuck missed? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Hold on.
Oh.
You want to vote on the variance first. You're going to allow the variance.
So the first motion is a motion to approve the variance.
This is Bill McCants. I make a motion to approve the variance for 2 Maple Street.
This is Brian. I'll second that.
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, then we need to approve the notice of intent.
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to approve the notice of intent for 2 Maple Street.
Bill McCants, I'll second.
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you sincerely, everybody. I appreciate your help and we look forward to getting to this project. I'll be in touch with the commission once it comes to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
All right,
Okay.
thanks, Chuck. Bye, everybody.
All right, our next hearing is 16 Beverly, and we need a motion to continue that to July 12th at the applicant's request.
This is Brian. Make a motion to continue 16 Beverly to July 12th at the applicant's request.
This is Andrew Gibbon. I'll second that, and I am in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, 22 Small Lane is next.
Hi, Jack. Is there anyone else with you tonight for 22 Small Lane? Right here, Caroline, right?
Okay, and I'll read the blurb while you get settled. Continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Carolyn Gracias pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for demoing a portion of existing house and deck, construct 2-car garage addition, proposed deck, and proposed screen porch. The existing house is to be converted from 1-story to 2-story. All of the work is within a buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessors Map 40, Lot 155, DEP file number 270-0770. Okay, welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Martha. For the record, I'm Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. Chuck, I don't know if Eric Hughes might want to be, he might be on for this too, but.
Okay.
But just to bring the commission up to speed, at our last meeting, we were trying to determine how to handle this project. There were new owners. There was an open order of conditions. And there were some plantings that were proposed under the previous order that some had gone in, some had not survived. And a determination was made that the new owners would take over the proposed plantings as part of the current notice of intent. And hopefully it goes, then this would go under their order of conditions when it ultimately gets approved. So since the last meeting, I added all the proposed plantings that were shown on a plan that Eric Hughes had prepared, who was the previous owner. And the only change was there's an access easement on the lower portion of this project. Some of the plantings, there were like 3 plantings that were going to be located within that access easement. But if the 2-lot subdivision moves forward for that separate project off a small lane, then those plantings would have just got trashed and removed it when the road went in. So I relocated all the plantings onto this property. And then if that project does move forward in the future, you know, all the plantings will be intact on this property. So that's the biggest, that was really the only change. I was told to put those on the plan. I did. I followed the previously approved plan, so it's all the same species and varieties of plants and shrubs. So I think at this time, I'll just turn it back to the commission to see if there's any questions on this updated material.
Anybody on the commission with a question or a comment? I'm going to say I do like your choice of plants and your location of plants. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And just tell me where on the plan the erosion control line is. I'm struggling with it. Is it just inside the 25-foot line mostly?
Yes, Chuck's moving across it right now.
Okay.
It's a smaller, heavier dash line. Yep, he's following it right around.
And so it meets the house at the 2 corners there, and you don't have erosion control beyond that house because you're not doing construction on that side.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay.
And I purposely did that because I didn't want any equipment going over that side of the house.
Okay. And we talked before about stockpile areas and debris, what happens with any digging and stuff like that. And I'm not sure I see any of that marked on this plan.
Right. I did add it for a future project coming up tonight. I did show a soil stockpile area. I thought at the last meeting we talked about it would be in the area to the right of the driveway and in front of the walk, right where Chuck is now in that area.
Sorry, I forgot this was just the certificate of compliance and not the actual project. So
okay.
I'll hold off that question till later.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on this?
No, Martha, this is the notice of intent to do the proposed addition, not the certificate of compliance request. So it's to ask for where the stockpile area is.
That is appropriate.
Yeah, that is appropriate. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So what's the project that's coming up later that you're talking about, the soil stockpile?
Yeah, we had talked on 18 Whittier later tonight that I do show a soil stockpile area. That was brought up at that hearing.
Okay, but this one, we also were questioning where to put stuff. And I think you're right that it's basically right in front of the proposed paver walk is pretty much the only place you can.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody on the commission with any other questions besides me? Okay, how about Chuck?
I don't have any questions about this. I think that we got to a point at our last meeting that it was just discussing whether they would take on the planting from the old notice of intent and order of conditions from the previous homeowner. So I guess I would take this opportunity to mention that we did see a lot of fertilizer, I guess, and some weed killer underneath the porch. And it's typical to have a restriction on those no rodenticides, this close to the wetlands. So the commission may discuss that if they want to, but reduced reduced fertilizers, slow release fertilizers. Most of them are that way now anyways, but it's good to have in the order of conditions. And then maybe no broadcasting a bug killer all over the place to kind of, because who knows what else it would get into. So that's all I would offer. And Andrew Driven has his hand up.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, before I agree, Chuck, with those suggestions in terms of putting them in the orders of conditions that preferably organic, lawn care and no rodenticide. But my one question, I don't remember what we were talked about with the tree. There's one tree that's going to be taken down, and because it's going to be replaced with. Just want to get some clarification of where those replacements are on the plan, because I'm getting lost with all the new things that are now on the plan as well. So there was the one tree, correct? That's it?
Yep, there's one 24-inch hardwood tree to be removed. And then if you move towards the back of the lot,
there's just three
in front of wetland flag 4A, between 4A and 5A, we show 3 shrub plantings, arrowwood viburnum, to be planted in that location.
Okay. Well, that meets our expectations. I was just out of curiosity, why are there no trees being proposed anywhere on the site?
Well, you can see I show some of the existing trees. There's not many, 3, 4-inch, 12-inch, 24-inch. It was just more of a decision to plant shrubs. It wasn't against trees. We're keeping a 22-inch tree. It was just more, it seemed like with some of the trees that are kept that we located, that, and then the plantings are mostly shrubs. We just went with shrubs.
I didn't think you were against trees.
I'm not against. I love
trees.
I love trees. But in this case, we picked shrubs in the 3. I think we needed 2 shrubs to offset the tree, but we provided 3.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
All right. I saw Walter hand up for a minute and then it went down. So Walter, if you still wanted to talk, please do raise your hand again.
I had the same question about the tree, which has been answered.
Okay. All right. And I see somebody who I would assume is a member of the public, Sarah Bocci. Would you like to ask or questions or make comments? And do we need to ask Sarah to unmute? Yes. Okay.
All right. I just want to know this is Carlo Bocci. For some reason, I can't change the name on Zoom.
Okay, Carlo, what's your question or comment?
No, I just want to make you aware it's me. It's not Sarah. It's Carlo.
Understood.
I don't have a question. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So is there anybody, Chuck, are we done? Do you have any more questions?
I don't have any more questions. I have no other questions.
Where's that we go?
All right. And I think the materials we saw under the deck when we did our site visit was the glyphosate weed killer and also insecticide, I believe, was what we saw stored under there. So if we're asking them not to use those on their property, hopefully they can find somebody who's not near a wetland who would appreciate their materials. Okay, Carolyn.
Hi, I just wanted to speak on regards of what you found under the deck. They were unopened. Our parents who don't live near conservation, we just had told them that, you know, we're near conservation, we have a lot of weeds, and them not knowing that they can't do that gave that to us. We had not used it. We were going to return it. And now it has been returned. We were just taking a bit to return the item.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to close this hearing?
This is Brian, make a motion to close the hearing on 22 Small Lane.
This is Andrew Dribbin. I'll second it, and I am in favor.
Rambo in favor.
Bill McKenzie in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, then we need a motion to approve this notice of intent, including the additional plantings that they are taking on.
Sure, let's discuss conditions first.
Yeah.
I'll say what I have, and if there's any additional ones, let me know. So I'm just going to put in the order of conditions. The equipment will not be entering on the right side of the house. The stockpile area will be between the driveway and the paver walkway. Organic fertilizers will be used, no rodenticides. And I wasn't sure if there was, and I guess glyphosate is not going to be allowed either. I wasn't sure if that was just noting what was under the porch, or if that was also a restricted substance.
I will bow to your greater knowledge on this subject.
I would say within 25 feet of the wetland. And then just use, and you can't use broadcast spraying. So pinpoint spraying, if you could do that. See, the problem with glyphosate is that you're definitely going to kill, it's a broadleaf killer, and you're going to kill that plant that you're spraying it on, but everything around it also. So it's not great, but it's mixed in a way that homeowners can use it, and it's readily available at all the stores around. So there may be an opportunity that you may need it for something. I mean, a lot of people don't use this stuff. I would certainly try to pull the weeds first, but you really want to make sure that you're targeting the species that you're not overspraying if you ever use that. So I would restrict them from the 25 foot from using that area, which is a lot of this property anyways. And that's what I have.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So with those restrictions, do we have a motion?
What actually are we doing the motion on at this point?
To issue the order of, to issue.
Okay, so this
Do
is
we-
Brian, make a motion to issue for 22 Small Lane.
Bill McKenzie, second.
This is Andrew. I'm in favor, but I'm in favor. We'll figure it out later.
Rambo in favor.
Bill McKenzie in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. All right, we're settled with that one. Can you stop your screen share, please? Okay, after 22 Small Lane is 18 Whittier.
Okay. Again, Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group.
Okay, hold on, Jack. I haven't read the blurb yet.
Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Yeah, I was grabbing my copy of the plan, so I got delayed there. Okay, continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by CJM Builders pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for demoing the existing house, detached garage, and remove driveway and construct a new single-family house, driveway, utilities, site grading, and drainage. All of the work is within a buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project Assessors Map 39, Lot 33, DEP file number 270-0771. All right, Jack, now.
Great, thank you. Chuck, do you mind sharing the plan?
Sure.
All right, again, Jack Sullivan. So we had at the last meeting, the commission said they'd like, some members would like to do a site walk. I'll give a brief overview of some of the additions to the plan, and then I'll turn it for any questions that might have come up on the site walk. But at the last meeting, there was one of the members asked to see a proposed soil stockpile area. That has been added on the southerly side of the lot. It's the only room on the site to have the soil stockpile area. We did add that. Also, the commission asked if, and I think Chuck asked, if there'd be the ability to beef up some of the plantings within the 25-foot ZNV zone. So we did beef it up. In this case, I did show 2 trees to be planted. There'd be river birch trees and a total of 12 shrubs. In the area where the existing detached garage is that's coming down, you can see how close it is to the brook now. That's going to be removed. And I was asked to beef up how that area was going to be restored. So I did note that the entire garage foundation and all concrete will be removed from that area. It'll be filled with clean soil. There'll be 6 inches of loam to be placed on this area, and then a native Northeast wildflower seed mix will be planted in addition to the shrubs in the tree shown. So we did really beef up the area within the 25-foot zone. I still do have some backyard area. You can see, they're losing some of it, but a majority of the 25-foot zone will be reestablished. And one neighbor did show up. I never did hear back from that neighbor. There was a question at the last meeting. There was something about concern with some sort of hazardous material notation. I did talk to the builder. The asbestos was removed from the site. That was all done under the law, and all signage has been since removed from the house. But just so the commission's aware, that's what it was at the last. It was asbestos. I think that covers all the changes to the plan, and I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions and an update on their site walk.
Okay. Is there anyone who went on the site walk that would like to discuss what we saw? Not hearing any volunteers. One thing I noticed on the site walk was Walter is raising his hand. All right, Walter.
Well, going back to the last meeting, there was a discussion about the drainage on the left side of this diagram. And I think it was deferred to the town doing something about it. Is that correct?
Not the dry well I shown, but a neighbor was concerned that there's a 10-inch drain pipe within an easement. But that, yeah, I think the commission, maybe you asked Chuck to follow up with DPW, but that's a town easement, so it would be something to do with DPW if it was to be cleaned. I think an abutter brought up that concern. You have a good memory, Walter. I forgot about that, but it was something to do with someone was going to follow up with DPW.
Okay. All right. So one of the things I noticed was that part of the 6 6-foot stockade fence along the back property line was collapsed. Are you planning to repair or replace or remove that fence?
It would be repaired. This, we'll keep the fence in place. So if there's a section that's out, part of the approval would be to restore that fence.
Okay. All right. You've answered the ZNV question. Construction entrance is along the area where the current driveway is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We were wondering about how to control the debris that might blow into the stream during the construction. I guess putting the fence back up would help, but do you have any other plans, given the stream is so close to the construction site?
Is the biggest concern with the garage or just in general with the house as well?
I guess just having been to some other construction sites and seeing trash and things like that people have left on the ground, and things that blow into the wetland.
Yeah.
I think, I would like to have, well, A, put the fence back up so things don't blow over the fence, and B, do some checking to make sure that there's not plastic water bottles, empty water bottles that could blow into the stream and that kind of debris. And certainly when you're tearing down the garage, make sure that the garage debris is hauled away and doesn't fall over the fence into the stream.
Yeah, I think we're showing a 12-inch diameter mulch sock for erosion control, but along the rear limit of work line, we could back that up with a silt fence as well. And that might help protect anything from blowing over.
Okay. Chuck, what do you think? Would that be appropriate?
So what were you you're gonna attack this problem from the front, and you're just gonna reach over the garage and drag all that stuff back, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so you're gonna have the mulch sock and silt fence in the back. Yeah, it looks like the mulch sock's right on it. That would be about the best you could do, I guess. But what Martha's saying about just going in there afterwards and making sure that everything is cleaned up from that activity, even if it's beyond the property, makes a lot of sense.
Yep, I agree.
All right. We saw there's a pair of trees on the property line to the left as you're looking at this picture, 36 and 30-inch trees. And there's ivy growing on those trees, and just concerned to protect the survivability of those trees. The homeowner may want to cut the ivy so it doesn't continue to encroach on the tree trunks.
Okay, I'll make the owner aware.
Okay. And I have a note here that says branch trimming of double tree ? And oak in back ? Is there anyone who was on the site visit who has a clue what I'm talking about? Tony. He just disappeared.
There. Okay. Currently, there are two trees that have very large branches that are right now growing and overhanging the existing roof. And it would seem that if a second story is being put on, that those branches might be in the way. And we were wondering if those branches are going to be cut down and how that's going to be, and if so, how that's going to be executed.
Is it from, are the branches from either the 30-inch tree or the 36-inch tree that we were talking about that has the ivy?
I believe so.
Yes, and also the oak in the back.
Yes.
Okay, so the trees will stay, and they may have to do some selective trimming of some of the branches for the house work. You can see the house is larger than the existing house. So, and the existing house is, I think it's a 2-story, 1.5 story, and we're going 2-story. So there may have to be some trimming of the branches to accommodate that second floor.
Will that be done with a crane? Will that be done from a lift? What's the level of impact?
I'd have to check with the builder. It's CGM Builders who they do a lot of construction in town. I just don't know how to answer that question. I don't know who they use for their tree work or how they perform that work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I just have one other comment, and then I'll turn it over to Brian. And I may be hogging all the comments, but when we were looking at the stockade fence out of the property at the abutter who would be on Main Street, we noticed that abutter has a fence on the stream bank that the base of the fence is basically in the water. And that's not really relevant to this particular project's approval, but it is a concern that fence looks like it might be getting eroded from the stream being so close to the fence. I don't imagine it was built to be standing in the water. All right, that's all I had. Tony.
Thanks. Jack, I have another question that you probably won't be able to answer. It has to do with how the wetlands were delineated. It looks like things are being measured off of the top of an inland bank, and it wasn't quite clear to me how that line was delineated. There are two ways to do it. One is first observable break and slope, and the other is based on a mean water level. Do you happen to know which method was used?
I don't know. I did. Norse Environmental performed the delineation. And it's an intermittent brook, so I don't know if it would be based on, the water level. But again, I don't know. I usually engage them for any wetland work I have done, and they go out and do their thing. But I don't know how they made that determination.
Is that something you could ask them? It may push the wetland line a few feet.
I can ask, sure.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to add is that when it comes to the cleanup, I'd like to see a daily cleanup occur along the wetland line. I think housekeeping in these scenarios is very important.
Yep.
And I'd just like to see, any trash picked up on a daily basis.
Yep.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Brian.
Okay. Another observation or two. We also saw lots of invasives along the left-hand side, burning bush and a number of other things that you should consider taking out during the course of this project. Additionally, there's been talk about the trees, the tall trees where they're talking about trimming them. It's not may have to, they're going to have to, because otherwise some poor kid up there is going to have a tree trunk growing through their window. Additionally, further back in the left, there are two struggling trees. There's an evergreen, very scraggly. Most of the branches are only along one side. Additionally, there's a deciduous with a fairly large cavity in it, about 15-20 feet up. So I know on this you're saying no tree removal, but what is your thought about those two trees that probably won't make it?
Are they the ones right back where that 10-inch drain discharges, right?
I don't think so. I think they're the 22-inch tree where the 25-foot line curves.
Yeah.
And they're the deciduous at the back that's 10 inches right next to the words existing 6 foot for the stockade fence.
Oh, okay.
So my reason for asking is, I know you say there's no trees being cut down, and that's typically a positive thing when it comes to us approving something. However, if the homeowner is going to turn around in a year and come back to say, you take these trees down, I would like to view the whole project. And if trees have to come down, I want to think about that now as part of the approval process.
Well, if they look unhealthy, or if you think they're dying, I mean, they could come down. Like I said, we are proposing 2 trees to be planted on top of the 12 shrubs. So
from my perspective, I don't know they're going to come down. It's well established that they could look healthy and be gone tomorrow, and they could, etc. But I think those 2 are unlikely to survive for a long period of time. So I want you to incorporate replacements for them as part of this plan, on the assumption those trees are not going to make it.
okay. Well, I think I'd be covered then, because if they're not going to make it, we're providing 2 trees. So if we took a tree, I think it's a 1-to-1 replacement, if I'm right. So we've kind of already done that in this case.
Okay, you may have, but let's just do it purposefully and clearly in writing.
Yeah.
Let me see. Why is it a 20-foot wide driveway?
For 2 cars. It's a 2-car garage. So, a parking space is 9 by 18. Side by side, you'd be at least 18 feet wide. And with winter conditions, you want to give a little room, for snow piling. So you can go 24 feet wide is the max the town allows. So we went 20.
Okay, I'm only asking because it's not a large lot, and that's that much more impervious surface.
Yeah.
Everything else Martha covered, so I'm all set.
Anybody else on the commission? Okay, Chuck, do you have anything?
I do not have any other comments.
Okay, is there any members of the general public who are here who want to comment on the project at 18 Whittier? Please use the reactions function at the bottom and click on the raise hand button. Okay, seeing none. Are we ready to close this hearing?
You have a bunch of requests. I'll just run through them. Ask the DPW to look at the easement to see if it's blocked, cut the ivy off the trees, install or repair the fence behind at the back of the property. Behind the garage is going to get mulch sock and silt fence. It's a question about how the tree limbs will be removed, about that discussion on the left-hand side of the property where the limbs look like they're pretty close to where the new house is going to be going. And then how was the wetland line established? What method was used? And then the trash on the site must be picked up daily. Some of these would be conditions, and then a write-up on the trees condition and the condition of the 2 dead trees and how they would be replaced if they were taken down in the next couple of years. So I'm not sure with all those, if you want to close or you want to ask the commission if they want to close. But I did want to read those before that was discussed.
Correction on the 2 trees, you called them dead trees. Neither one is actually dead. They were both unhappy.
Declining.
Sure, that's a good word.
All right. Were any of those questions that we need to have Jack come back with answers for us in the future? Like Tony, the wetland line, do you want us to continue and get Jack's answer to that? Okay.
He's nodding his head,
I would
yes.
too.
Okay.
I would too.
All right. So Jack, are you willing to continue to our next hearing on July 12th and come back with the answer for the wetland line question?
I am. I know I know the builder was hoping, I think he's already applying for his demo permits. But if I have to come back, I'll come back. I can ask Norse to provide that and I can get some information. Like, I think I did cover the trees, even if the other two in the future go. So I'll put that in writing. So yeah, I guess I'll continue to July 12th.
And the one thing that I heard that was a question that needs answering is the wetland line question.
Right.
Other questions Jack needs to come back with answers for. Everything else seemed to be requests or conditions. Okay, so it's just that one question that we're looking for an answer.
Okay.
Motion to continue then, 18 Whittier to July 12th.
This is Andrew. I'll second that, and I'm in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, thank you, Jack. We'll see
Yep.
you on July 12th.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Our next hearing is 198 Haverhill, and I will read the blurb while Chuck lets people in. 198 Haverhill Street opened the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Ari Greenberg under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to construct a new 28-foot by 8-foot deck with 2 stairs, connecting to an existing deck as shown on plans. The deck will be supported by pressure-treated wood posts set on concrete footings. No earthwork other than footings and no tree removal or other work. All of the work is within a 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under Current Project, Assessor's Map 35, Lot 69, RCC file number 2023-12. Okay. All right. Ari, do you want to present your project?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I'm Ari Greenberg. I'm the homeowner for 198 Haverhill. I don't know if I've screen sharing, otherwise I can present, or if Chuck can put it up on screen.
I can put that up there, but you do have sharing abilities.
I'll share, so to make that simple.
Okay.
So can everyone see?
Yes.
This is a site plan for our property at 198 Haverhill. You can see the border of Timberneck Swamp adjacent to our south in this cyan color, and denoted the 25 and 35 foot buffers in the blue dashed lines. So I put some measurements on this plan, I'll zoom in for ease of access, denoting the 25 and 35, and then the proposed location of the new deck in the orange color. The closest that the deck comes to the wetland is about 45 feet off of the south side of our it's built off the south side of our house. So this would be servicing a new egress for a relocated door on our house that's part of a ongoing renovation to our kitchen. And then essentially wrapping the deck would connect to the existing deck off the back of the house, wrapping around to accept the new door and make it one continuous piece. So this is outside of the 35-foot zone, but virtually our entire property is within the 100-foot zone, given the size of the property and the adjacency to Timberneck Swamp. Proposed materials, it's a standard construction, pressure treated framing over concrete piers. The piers will come a few inches above grade, and then accept the pressure treated posts on galvanized caps. No other earthwork is needed, no tree removal. It's just a pretty straightforward deck project here. That's all I got.
Okay, anybody on the commission with questions? Brian? You're muted, Brian.
It may have been better that I was muted, but all right. So I was out there this afternoon. And so a couple of observations. First, I noticed that the work has commenced. And as part of that project, there's a pile of lumber to be used that's off to the back left of the property. And that pile is pretty close to the resource. Because the resource is essentially right off your property. There's open water down the little decline.
Yeah, it's pretty close to our property.
So given that there's already been cutting and there's some piles of sawdust, so what are your plans for doing that in a more formal way? Are you going to keep the stockpile where it is, close to the resource, or you plan to move that further away?
We could certainly move it to farther north in the property within the outside of the 35-foot. That wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, and in that same general area, back along the, actually right over that wire fence, there's a large pile of brush. So as part of this project, I'd like to see that brush removed because that's, again, right next to the resource.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following exactly what that is. I'm wondering if you could provide a photograph or I could need you to see that exactly.
I can't give you a photograph now. I'd be happy to either go out and point it out to you or take a photograph and come back. But at the moment, it's hard to miss. You just look over the wire fence and there's a pile of brush 3-4 feet high.
Okay.
Brian, on the map that we're looking at now, can you describe where it is relative to landmarks on the map?
I could even put my cursor here to.
Okay, so it's just off the property down the bottom, just to the left of where the 86 is. Yeah, right down, but down just off the property because over the wire fence.
So it's not, it's outside of my property?
Just outside your property, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think the birds are pounding up that high. So stop that. And all right, and I noticed there was a tent camper in the back of the property and a disabled VW Bug, but those are outside jurisdictional area, so that would be okay. Okay, and that's all I have, Martha.
Okay, Tony.
Hi. I had another question about the wetland delineation, and you're showing your offsets from the wetland resource area. Could you identify what that wetland resource area is, and again how it was delineated? Or are you measuring from the edge of the stream, or are you measuring from the top of the bank? When we conducted the site visit, there was a mix of vegetation kind of in that wooded area between where the lawn is and where the stream is. And I was wondering if you've considered whether there might be bordering vegetated wetland there and where that line might start or end.
Forgive me that I'm not an expert on all the terminology. I measured from kind of the top of the bank where the excuse me one sec. I measured from the top of the bank where the kind of pitch drops off into the wetland. The water level does change depending on how much rain there's been in the area. So I actually did happen to measure after a pretty good rainstorm, so it was pretty close to the top. But yeah, there's kind of mostly leaves covering that area, not a huge amount of greenery on spilling out onto that bank.
Did you make any marks or flags or anything to the place where you marked at the bank edge?
I didn't. I just measured with the tape measure to my house from the edge of the house there to where that was.
Tony, do you have more questions?
When we were there, I noticed that the ground cover was, there were some ferns there, but there was also a fair amount of Virginia creeper and some poison ivy. And as you mentioned, a very thick layer of leaf litter. Chuck, I'm pretty sure those are facultative upland species. Is that something we?
For the poison ivy for sure.
Yeah.
I could check as this meeting goes on, but yeah, I think that I haven't been out there to identify the wetland area, but I would just let you know how I end up looking at these projects. And so the RDA is typically used in Reading as a homeowner project. So we're going to have a homeowner looking for a wetland mostly, sometimes with my help. But Ari did this himself, and it sounded like he walked out from the wetland and found the first break and slope, and he identified that as his spot. I would also draw your attention to that he's 46 feet away with his modest deck that he's building on the side of his house. And if it increased by 10 feet or so, we would still be outside of the 35-foot area. I think it's best if there's some question, to have another look at this on site rather than to, without a consultant here representing the homeowner to talk about the wetland line, because I think we're well over their ability to understand what and why we're even asking. So, I mean, those are my comments. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. If I could elaborate, we have met. I came to discuss the town hall, how to go through this process and how to identify the wetlands. So you can see I did follow the contour line on the GIS map based on, I corroborated that with my measurement based on the, measuring that distance and finding that it correlated with that line. So that's where I identified, the elevation line. I believe this is 80, that would be 84 feet elevation to coordinate with that. It does, doesn't exactly correlate with where the JS puts the delineation, the kind of green hatch of the wetland. But yeah, I'm this is intending for this to be a modest size, just enough to really provide egress from the house and continuity, and trying to stay as far as possible away from that wetland as I can.
Okay, I think it would be an extreme case to imagine that wetland line going more than 10 feet from the top of that bank. But I was just curious as to how that was delineated. So I'm all set. Thank you.
We do have the option of approving the project without approving the wetland line. And especially since it hasn't even been marked with flags, we don't have a specific line on the property that we're approving. But that would be an option, is to make it clear that we are not, we have not vetted this wetland line, even if we do approve that the project can go forward. Bill, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I just want to echo something Brian observed as well, and that is the pile of lumber in various places when the project is undertaken. The expectation that it'd be much more systematic about containing any building materials, keeping them as far from the resource area as possible. Also, we did note the car parts, and yes, there's the 25-foot and 35-foot zone, but in fact, we look at the entire 100-foot zone and any possible impact it may have. on the resource area. And so just want some consideration given to not just the car under the tarp, but also there were car parts under the existing deck, rusting and so forth. So just giving some attention to this debris and thinking about how it may affect the resource area. Obviously, the further away from the resource area it is, the less likely it is to have an effect, but we are charged with considering the entire 100-foot buffer to some degree. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Walter.
We had also noticed that there was many different pieces of chewed up concrete in the lower left hand of your picture there.
Yeah, near the tree. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, pretty much keep going a little bit to the left. Yeah, somewhere in that area.
Do you mind if I ask when you visited the property, what date?
Yesterday morning.
Okay, understood. Because I did remove some as earlier on, so it must be still there. Yep.
Yeah. I think where I saw the concrete that Walter is talking about is right down at the bottom where your wetland line crosses the corner of your property boundary. So right down.
Yeah, so right. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted.
And in that same area, we also saw a beach umbrella practically buried in the debris there, just beyond the dead tree in that back corner.
Okay. Yeah, so we've been working on it. We've lived here a little over 2 years and have been working hard on cleaning up the various debris that was left from the legacy homeowner, but must have missed that umbrella. So yeah, there's like sort of a couple of concrete blocks over there in the corner that were existing there. I was going with the philosophy of try not to disturb anything, but I can certainly dispose of those if that's recommended.
I also would reiterate sawdust control on the project, because that was one thing we noticed around the work that you folks have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, from my perspective, there was a manhole cover in the yard. If you have your cursor again.
Yep, I know where that is. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yep.
Is that septic?
Yeah, so that's again, that predates our ownership of the property. That relates to the septic system being converted to sewer. So that I could actually pull up that plan, and Chuck probably has it from the approval on that. But the septic used to go out the back around here, and the contractor, because the pipe went out the back, had to reroute that from here to here out to the front of the street. So that manhole cover is where that takes a bend. But like I said, that's existing.
If I pulled up the cover, would I see it filled?
I hope. I've never pulled it up. Filled with
anything.
I hope not. I mean,
I think you're supposed to backfill a septic system after at least the.
Sorry. So that cover is not the old septic tank. That is the new drain. It's where the drain takes a turn. The old septic was crushed and filled, and all that was signed off by Chuck.
Yeah, I saw that up near the 155, or at least below the 155 notation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's somewhere over here. That's right.
I'm good. So again, just control the sawdust, please.
Great. Understood.
Are you expecting to have any soil that you're going to need to stockpile, or are you just making small enough holes you won't really be generating a pile of soil?
I don't plan to generate a significant amount, just what's removed from where the footings go. And I would certainly welcome advice on where you'd recommend me best relocate that. I was gonna just kind of spread it under where the deck is, but I could certainly put it somewhere else on the property as well.
And maybe I'll defer to Chuck for the answer to that question, but let me ask also, is your construction access going to be from the driveway or straight from Haverhill Street? How are you going to get to this deck you're planning to build?
from the driveway, we kind of just walk across the front yard. But there's no need to, I don't intend to bring a vehicle onto the property for that, just foot traffic on our lawn.
So it's foot traffic to be building the deck,
That's
not driving trucks in.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I think those were my only questions. Chuck, did you have questions or comments or an answer to what he should do with the soil from the post holes?
Oh, from the spoils from excavating.
Yes.
Yeah, usually people say they're going to take that off site and dispose of it, but you have some area on your property that's outside the 100-foot. I think for our purposes, if you could spread it out in that area or eliminate it well beyond, it's at least 100 feet away, and it's unlikely to, move down towards the wetland before it turns into, the makings of some grassy area.
Okay.
Any other comments, Chuck?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. Is there any members of the general public who are here who have questions or comments on this project? Please use the reaction function at the bottom of your screen and click on the raise hand button. Okay. Are we ready to close this hearing?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 198 Haverhill Street.
Bill McCancel, second.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, and then in order for this project to be allowed to go on, the applicant is looking for a negative determination of applicability. And so do we have a motion for a negative determination of applicability for this project?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination for 198 Haverhill Street.
Bill McCancel, second.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. Thank you very much, Ari, and good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and good night.
Thank you.
Chuck, can you stop? There we go. Okay, 31 Wilson Street is our next project. Open the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Jessica Boudreau pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for demolishing a utility space and installing a concrete frost wall foundation with crawl space and rebuild a modestly enlarged sunroom, adjacent mudroom, and a second floor expansion to the existing bedroom. The project includes a small stair platform, 2 steps, and a rustic patio. All of the work is within a buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessor's Map 22, Lot 159, DEP file number 270. Do we have a file number yet?
We do not have a file number.
Okay, so with no file number, we will not be able to close this hearing tonight, but we might as well start it and see where we go. And then we will have to continue it until there's a file number available. Okay, is Jessica here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, welcome, Jessica.
Thank
And some of us did a site visit and met you yesterday morning.
Yes.
And I don't know if anybody else went by as well. Do you want to present your project, and would you like Chuck to put up the plans, or do you want to put up the plans?
I have the plans here. I can put them up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, can you see the plan?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the plot plan that was prepared by Reading Land Surveyors. The project that is part of a ongoing rehabilitation of the old 1890 home. This basically is removing an existing utility shed, which is well outside of the 35-foot no disturb, no build zone. It exists at about 57 feet from the wetland delineation is where this existing wall is. The new proposed addition to the house will just be about 4 feet closer to that, but all of the work is still continuing to remain outside that 35-foot no build zone. And I do not plan to remove or modify any of the trees or plantings in the backyard. My goal is to hopefully not disturb any of the root structures either. Just note, I guess again, it's the maximum we're getting close that I am getting close to the wetland delineation is 44 feet to the property line. It's about 50 feet to the porch landing or that step.
Okay, is that it?
I think that's it. Everything was in that description, so just wanted to emphasize a few other things.
All right, anybody have questions or comments for the homeowner? Brian? You're muted.
Not easy being me. So I went by today, and first question is, how are you planning to handle the material from the tear down?
So I will get a dumpster and I will have it removed from the property prior to coming in for excavation for the new foundation.
Okay, and where would the dumpster be?
It will likely sit in the driveway.
And how will you get the material from the area where it's torn down up front to the dumpster?
I'll be walking it out.
Pleasant. And what about storing materials you're going to use to build? Where do you plan to store those?
So those will likely go sort of along this property line here. So again, sort of beyond this 50-foot wetland buffer, there's a small area on the side of the property there that doesn't have any growth because of the pine tree above it. It's just kind of a bare area. And that's likely where I would store. I also have some space in the front of the house if I need to.
Okay, the next one, actually, Chuck can comment on if I'm incorrect, but I think these days we typically ask for a mulch sock rather than a straw wattle. Chuck, is that correct?
Can you repeat that?
A mulch sock rather than a straw wattle?
Yeah, we would at least want to, we prefer on bigger projects, 12-inch mulch sock, and sometimes the request is to have a silt fence in behind that.
Yeah, I don't think that would be necessary just because it's pretty far away, but at least the mulch sock instead.
Okay, I can make that change.
Yep, and you're planning on using semi-pervious pavers, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, so we'd be looking for an operations and maintenance plan for those.
Yes, and I talked with Chuck about that in a meeting a little bit ago.
Of course you did. That's great. And as you may have heard in an earlier hearing, we'd want to make sure that the fill between the pavers is properly sufficient so you don't have seeds and grass growing in there.
Yes.
Okay, now towards the back of the property, you have some issues. The most significant is you have a very large mound of grass clippings, and it's right on the edge of the pretty steep bank that goes down. And it's relatively fresh because it's spongy. I walked on it looking for wetland flags. And I'm actually not even sure if it's on your property or maybe just off your property, because in looking at the map, the distance that it shows between your property line and the resource, it just seems like it may not be on your property, but that pile has got to be removed, and we can talk about that and how to do that later, but it's unacceptable in the position that it is. Additionally, I noticed that along the bank, there's a little berm of soil that's been built up along much of it. Do you know where that came from?
Where are you talking about? In back here?
Yeah, along much of the back.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
I am aware, I will say, I will comment on this, that I was not aware of the wetland regulations here. So that pile is mine in the back corner. I will remove that. I plan to do that. I had hoped to do it before you guys came out for a site visit, but I didn't get to it.
You missed it by that much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know where the soil came either. I was looking for some signs that it was dragged up. I didn't see any. But it's distinctive and it's across much of the back. So, and the problem you have is it's a very steep slope and you have this mostly uncovered soil berm. And so you may already be getting erosion. I didn't see any channels, but it's certainly going to be prone to erosion. And that would be going right down into the resource.
Okay.
Okay, also, you have a number of areas in the back where you have piles of various logs or brush, or even some slats of wood. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so most of those logs have been from trees that have come down in storms or branches that have come down in storms and I've had to cut up. What was the second thing that you asked? So the logs, oh, the slats.
Right.
I've been doing some interior renovation in the house, and those slats were the plaster and lath slats that I plan to use as like burning wood. But I can get those off-site in the dumpster if that is.
Yeah, I was assuming that at least some of that was intended to be burned, because I saw you had a small pit in the middle of your chair circle.
Yeah.
However, I will say you have enough wood there through the zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
It's probably overkill, and a lot of it looked like it's very old and wet and tired. So I don't know how useful it'd be for that anyway.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of that, I bought the property 8 years ago now, and a lot of that was just each winter, a lot of branches come down out of those trees. So a lot of that in that, at least in the middle section there, is just tree branches that have come down and I've cut over time. And I'll either throw out the rotten stuff or burn it.
Yeah, and I will note, you could bring it to the compost center. There's an area for brush there. It's a lovely compost center.
Yes,
Let's see.
and many times.
I did find wetland flag 1 and 4, the 2 on the outside. I did not find 2 and 3, but there's a jungle back there, so it's possible they're there and I just missed them. Let me see. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill.
Yeah, just a quick comment that similar to something Brian said, but I want to emphasize with respect to what I saw as a firewood stockpile, that 25-foot wetland buffer is our zone of natural vegetation. And so even though your project doesn't go there, when we're reviewing projects, we're always thinking about what can we do to enhance that area when we get a chance to look at it. And so it sounds like you're willing to move the wood that's back there, and that would be a very good idea. Even though, as is shown on the plan, it's existing lawn. Nevertheless, even if that's the case, we want to do everything we can to encourage natural growth and keep stockpiles and so forth away from the resource area. And that's my comment. Thanks.
And I'm just going to support the request for moving the sticks and the wood pile away from the 25-foot zone. But I am also concerned that if you just move them out of the way, what's going to happen is the knotweed is going to encroach into the backyard. So you're going to want to pull or cut or something, any knotweed that's trying to come in onto your property, and you know, try to get some plantings in there when you take away the wood pile to compete with the knotweed. And, you know, we'd be looking for natural vegetation, ferns or wetland shrubs, or, you know, that kind of thing. Chuck has a list of native plants on the conservation page, so you can look there for suggestions.
I have it printed already.
Yeah. So I just think, you know, we've asked you to take away the wood pile, but if you just take away the wood pile, you're going to end up with a knotweed clump. So you want to be careful to keep the knotweed on your neighbor's property and not let it start creeping onto yours.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Did I have any other comments? You're not planning to remove any trees. We've talked about that. I think I'm good. Anybody else from the commission? Okay, Chuck, what do you have?
Yeah, I did want to ask about, you know, typically we do insist on reestablishing some sort of vegetated buffer strip at the back of the property. Remind the commission about that. But as reviewing the plans and looking at the infiltration trench, I was looking at the detail. I don't know if you can pull that up, but I didn't see on the detail where it showed that you were going to protect the stone with landscape fabric, you know, by surrounding it, at least on, I know up against the foundation, you're going to put some sort of rigid insulation or something like that. So that's probably fine, but underneath and on the side. So I was wondering if you were going to add that, or would you add that, or why are you not proposing that?
I would add that. It was probably just an oversight in the detail. And that the rigid insulation is actually frost protection for the foundation. So that's separate of these trenches.
Okay. Yeah, I like how you hid them underneath the deck. It was, it's pretty interesting how you did that. So how are you proposing to ensure that over time they're not clogged up by leaves and things that fall through the deck? Is there going to be access? Is there access underneath the decking along the side or something?
Yeah, so I'm actually planning to do some like removable sections of the deck so that I can lift it up and get access to those the downspouts.
Sure, if needed. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you've covered all the bases on that. In the back, in the backyard, I think that I know there's not too much out there in that zone of the 25-foot. You have it on the plan as the buffer zone, but that's our zone of natural vegetation.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about establishing a buffer strip there for any runoff. You've increased pervious surface in the yard, and so you've taken away, you know, natural grass and whatnot. And I was wondering if you would add a little bit to the back, typically from side to side, and about 5 feet is what's asked for. I think there's some trees out there. I don't know the shape of, like, how, you know, where they are in their lifespan, those trees, but maybe shrubs would work out. Maybe that's something you're thinking about with this project. It looks like you're beautifying the house. Landscaping is probably phase 2.
It's on the list, but it's gone down the priorities.
So if it is phase 2 and these projects last for 3 years, it would be good to know that you're proposing that inside of this project, so we could kind of
Okay.
understand that. So I would like to see a list of, I'm going to call it a vegetated buffer strip, but you can see that we've asked for that before, and people have come back with areas where they thought it would work, but close to the stream. So, you know, it doesn't have to be a continuous line of vegetation. It can be broken up. I'm sure you have a plan or something in your mind. And I understand getting the house done, then you're going to focus on the backyard, but we just need something right now, knowing that you're going to fill in an area. Again, you could just call out in an area and say, I'm going to fill this area with native vegetation, make a list, and just pinpoint where those would go.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Tony,
I want to get
Hi. Again, I have a question that's probably going to be best answered by your wetland consultant, or Chuck, maybe you could chime in. I'm curious as to whether this area is actually subject to the riverfront designation. That wasn't indicated on the NOI form. And
Yeah, so we thought that not me and the applicant, but I think I was talking to the chairs about this. And so I did check stream stats, and there's not enough, forgot the term. There's not enough watershed. Thank you. There's not enough watershed for this area. So it's not a riverfront. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. I know I had that question earlier this week too.
Okay, thanks.
Andrew.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to second what Chuck was saying. I didn't comment on it because I didn't actually get a chance to see the house, but I did notice on the plan that the 25-foot zone of natural vegetation is currently grass. But so if we could add some sort of natural vegetation, wildlife, seeds, I understand that's not the priority, but that's what we think about. So if we could add some sort of thought, and it could be unspecified, just that we will reestablish a zone of natural vegetation, and whatever that will look like is up to, I guess, you and Chuck. I'm not sure how that part works, but as long as it's kind of acknowledged on the plan or in the order of conditions, that would be my preference.
Well, yeah, so Andy, I would suggest that that's one of the documents that we would need prior to the next meeting, so we could review the plants and the locations and then approve it as a commission.
Okay, and then Chuck, did you say earlier when you were talking about that a percentage of area that you wanted me to cover with that, or a sort of a boundary?
So we'd like to have a vegetated buffer strip, which would probably prevent any fertilizer or whatnot to head over the bank and into the stream. That is the concept that I always say, and the commission says also, but that's not always what we get. Sometimes it's more of like an architectural looking landscape where there's just certain mounds and clumps of plants that have lawn in between. I would like to see a buffer strip, but again, I know that you said that you had a plan for the outside, so I didn't want to step on your plan. I just wanted you to show it to us, and so that we could, and then give you some background on what we usually ask for.
Okay.
Bill.
Okay, I think this question is to Chuck. It's only my 4th month on this commission, and you have institutional knowledge history. So I'm looking at section 3D, zone of natural vegetation. Bordering any wetland, the commission may require a ZNV of sufficient width, et cetera, for the interests you described. But the word is may. What I'm hearing you say, and what I've heard said by the commission in the past, is it's not really a may. it's something that the commission consistently asks for, a buffer strip of some kind. I just want to make sure I have that right.
It's usually asked for. Yeah, I would say.
Yep. Okay, so this is just for the commission. We've been talking about clarifying our regulations going forward. I think that's something the commission should think about. Section 3D, that we might want to work on this language since we're consistently asking for a buffer strip of some kind. This would be a good place to have that. And again, this is just for clarity for the community. It's not adding a new requirement. It's just for transparency. That's my comment. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Are there any members of the general public who are here who have questions or comments about this project? If so, go to the reactions function at the bottom of your screen and hit the raise hand button. Okay, seeing none, we can't close tonight because we don't have a file number. So, Jesse, is it okay with you if we continue to July 12th, or would you rather wait till the 26th of July?
The continuation to the 12th is okay with me. And I just wanted to ask Chuck, I know he had mentioned that I didn't have a file number last week and was going to try to look into that. Did you have a chance?
I did. I made a call and sent an email, but I didn't get any reply. And I think it may be because we're approaching the 4th holiday, 4th of July holiday. If I hear anything, I will. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, sometimes we have to call. It's actually happened a couple times in the last, I guess, our last 2 or 3 meetings that someone else was having a problem with their file number, which was resolved. I think that was Beverly. As a matter of fact, 16 Beverly was having the same problem. So there might be something going on at DEP.
Okay.
Okay. So can we have a motion to continue to July 12th?
So before we do that, is there anything else that we're asking for that may or may not be available by the 12th? I know I had talked about a OMP for the pavers, but is there anything else that we were looking for?
An O&M for the pavers, a planting plan for the buffer strip, and adding to the plans the removal of the firewood piles.
Right. So then my question to you, Jessica, is do you think by the 12th, given the holiday in the middle, that you'll be able to get those things ready?
Yes, I do. I'm determined.
Determination is good. So having heard that, then this is Brian. I'll make a motion to continue 31 Wilson to July 12th.
Bill McCancel, second.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCann in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. Thank you, Jesse. See you in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I saw that Kathy Kelly has joined us, and we're ready for the discussion of the trail off of Lynetta Lane.
Yeah, so let me just let everybody in. Whoever is Kathy Kelly, I'll let you in. Is there anyone else from the Trails Committee here that I should let in, Kathy?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So I'm the liaison to the Trails Committee, and I'm gonna show the project that's being presented for Lynetta Lane. So let me just get ready before we start here. So Martha, I guess you're gonna read the blurb and I will set this up.
Okay. Open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by the Reading Trails Committee under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to construct approximately 1,000 feet of walking trail consisting of 4 boardwalk bridges and steps made out of landscape timber. The trail will be approximately 4 feet wide and defined with wood chips along the entire route. The walking trail will be constructed by trail committee members and youth volunteers over the summer of 2023. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessors Map 52, Lot 127, RCC file number 2023-14.
So, hi, everyone. I said this before, I'm here with Kathy Kelly, Chair of the Reading Trails Committee, and I'm Chuck Taroni. I'm the Conservation Administrator, but I'm also the liaison to the Reading Trails Committee. And approximately 2 years ago, the developer of Lynetta Lane gave the Conservation Commission this piece of land that you see in front of you in green. It's in between Lynetta Lane and East Way. And with and what's been proposed out there is a walking trail that's comprised of wood chips and boardwalks, bridges, and a area that needs some steps. This summer, we have an opportunity to work with a volunteer group that was here last year, and they will be working on this trail along with the trail committee. And so we expect to get a lot of this trail done, if not entirely complete. The trail was walked and placed by myself, the chair of the Trails Committee, Kathy Kelly, and Will Finch, who is a longtime member of the Trails Committee and also a past member of the Conservation Commission. And by walking the property not only one time, I think it was walked several times over the course of a year or so, they determined that this trail that's generally laid out on this plan is the best place for the trail. That's not to say it won't move. That's not to say that we're showing an accurate, depiction of exactly where the trail is going. What will end up happening out there is the trail will go in between the flags that were placed by Will Finch and myself and Kathy Kelly. So there are typically, as you walk along, there are flags on 2 trees and the trail is going in between them. And of course, nature doesn't provide the trees to grow up in a row. So it's a little bit confusing. The trees might not be across from one another. So the typical trail bridge is going to look, and I'm wondering if you're seeing this picture of people working on a boardwalk. Did that come up?
No, we're still seeing the plot plan.
Okay, so let me just do a new share. And this is what we're expecting to have built out there. This is the standard that's been adopted by the Trails Committee. It goes in relatively fast. It's a 4-foot wide boardwalk that's elevated off the ground and put in place. You can either walk it in sections or build it right there along the boardwalk, or at least along the trail, as was said before earlier today by one of the scouts that was here. I have another new share. I don't know why this one doesn't expand, but maybe you can see this. This bridge does exist out there, and that was built last year over the stream that goes through this area. And there's culvert pipe elevating it off the stream, and which will also not restrict flow. So this style of bridge is what's going to be needed. Either we're going to use culvert for underneath the bridge, or it would be used by supporting 4x4s bammed into the ground, and then supporting the bridge that goes across from one dry area to another dry area. And I'll bring back the trail again, and these little squares on this plan show where we're proposing to put the bridges, and this is over that stream. The picture that I showed you of the bridge is up in this area here, over one stream here. This is a little section here over another wetland area, but not a stream. And this is the area where the stairs need to be installed, and then another boardwalk, and then along and through, and just one more boardwalk. And the best thing that was decided is to reconnect to the existing trail, and then back out to Lynetta Lane. So that's what we have for a boardwalk. I want you to know that there's over 700 miles of boardwalk that are in Reading right now, and the Trails Committee takes care of all that. Did I say 700? I think it's 70 miles, sorry. 70 miles. There's 700 and something amount of open space. That's what that 700 comes from. So there's like 70 miles of boardwalk that the Trails Committee has to take care of these days. And maybe Kathy has the exact number better than
15,
I do.
15.
Oh, we really? Oh my God, I'm way over. 15. Sorry about that. And we're not adding too much more with what we're doing here. Yeah, I appreciate that. Kathy, do you have anything to add to my comments while I turn back
No, I
to
think
my
you've
regular
covered
color?
it. No, I think you've covered it. I think the trail looks clear on this map, and we walked it recently with 2 conservation commission members last Sunday.
Yeah, I did want to show you the so our group, this is the volunteer group that worked with us last year. It's adult leaders and youths that come in and they work there, and they did the Pineville Trail, and they just finished that up, as a matter of fact. So if anyone wants to see what this youth group can do along with the Trails Committee, you can enter Pineville from Hunt Street, and you can Maple Street, and you can enter it from Pineville Ave, and you can see what this Lynetta Lane trail will look like. And that's what
I just say real quick, my wife and I went through Pineville recently. Fantastic work. Thank you, Trails Committee and everyone involved. It's just amazing, transformative. Just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Not possible without Next Steps Ministries.
And here's the group. Let's see, I lost the picture. Well, that's all right. I was just going to show you the Trails Committee, but I lost that picture. And so we can take questions now about the trail. So this is a collaborative effort between the Trails Committee. Conservation Commission owns the land, but typically allows trails to go on them. The Trails Committee puts the work in, along with the help that they're going to receive from the Next Step Ministries, and then we'll get some help from the DPW department. But their help is to drop off supplies and drop off like the wood chips and whatnot. And right now the stockpile area for that material is Lynetta Lane, right at the end of the cul-de-sac. So that's the end of this presentation. So me and Kathy will take any questions at this moment.
Okay, I'm going to call on Conservation Commission members first, and then open it to members of the public. Walter.
Yeah, I joined both of you, Martha and Kathy, on Sunday to walk the area. I was surprised actually how pristine it kind of was in most places. However, when you walk near existing houses, people had kind of indiscriminately thrown stuff or put stuff into the area. Case in point, there was one place where there was a pile, what, 7 or 8 tires, I believe it was. But, you know, that's typical where people don't respect their own property line. Can be easily amended, and with time, I'm sure it will be. Otherwise, I think it's a great addition to the town.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else on the Conservation Commission have questions or comments? Okay, I'm just going to follow up with what Walter said. I noticed that there was a fair amount of litter, bottles and cans and things like that, in addition to the grid of tires and a slide. I would hope that when the next step ministry works on the project, maybe they could clean up the existing litter, not necessarily the tires. I don't know whether that's too much to ask, but certainly at least the bottles and cans and chip bags and things like that. So that the trail starts out looking good and looking like it's being respected. And then I think anyone who's walking on it will be less likely to add to the litter if it's not there in the first place.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we notice is when we put a trail in, all the abutting, well, there's less trash in those areas because there's more eyes on those areas. And so it really helps out with littering, with people taking advantage of, you know, no access. So we have noticed that all over town. So I think that will probably end up fixing itself with the trail.
I agree with Chuck. When we built trail in Mallet Conservation Area, we were met with the opposition, but once the trail went in, we've seen an improvement in trash, an increase in use, and an appreciation for what we've done.
Okay, Tony.
Is there an opportunity with this workforce to address any invasive species issues along the trail?
Yeah, we could add that to their list to do something, but we had them work at Pinevale, and really it was the trails that they mostly paid attention to. The one additional thing we asked them to do is to walk through the trails and cut back anything that's growing in, but the Trails Committee had done that also. So that's about the extent of their time. Each one of these groups are here for 1 week, and then they move on and a new group comes in. It's an 8-week process. This is our second year, my second year running it. This is the second year it's been in town. And we did do invasive pulling in the town forest last year. So they are capable of doing it. It is something that they could do, but it might have to be something that we identify separately and have them go out and do that. And of course, with help, because the one in the town forest, we had several adults with them from town that could identify the garlic mustard that they were pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good suggestion, Tony. Thanks.
Thanks.
I'd also just like to have the volunteers be warned that this is an area that has a lot of poison ivy in it, so they should dress appropriately and maybe buy some Technu to use to protect them from the poison ivy.
Sure. So we might be opening up to members that have joined us tonight. I just want to make sure that everyone understands to speak, you hit the reactions button and click the raise hand function, and then we'll call on you. I didn't know if you said that, Martha. So anyways, I know that we have one Will on there now.
Okay. So I think it's time to ask for general public. Will Squiglia has already got his hand up, so I'm going to let him unmute and make a comment.
Okay, I was gonna try to turn on my video, but I couldn't do that, but that's okay. I'm not sure that you guys need to see me anyways. So let me first start by saying that I live on Eastway. I live on 32 Eastway. So my property abuts this trail that's going in all along it. And so myself and the neighbors certainly do have some concerns. Let me first point this out clearly. I'm not against this trail. What I am against is really where the placement of this trail is. So let me give you some facts. So the first thing that I will tell you right now, this promotes a huge cut through for our gym. I'm already seeing it now. This has already happened. We have people going back there now. In the past, I've seen workers literally go back there and take a leak. If they're continuing to cut through, if you look at Eastway itself, it's a huge walking street. And I welcome it. And I love when people walk down the street. It's a beautiful street. But how close this is to my property and other neighbors' properties, again, it's right up against it. We have people now already cutting through. What's going to happen when this trail gets there? And I ask you, what are you going to do if this becomes a major issue? What is my recourse here? I'm completely inconvenienced on this. Now, I'll go on to say too, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will. As for the tires and for shrubs back there, I couldn't agree with you more. Those tires are probably 25 years old. There's been shrubs, things pushed back there, absolutely. I've been living at this house for maybe over 2 years. I've never once pushed anything back there. Okay, so I do want to take care of this property, and I am for, the forest and the trails. But again, this trail is going up right against my property, and it's going up against the neighbor's property. It's going to promote people cutting through. We're already seeing it now. If the trail's out there, it's going to become a huge issue. I can't put up a fence because of just the way it is. Plus, it'd probably be costly to put up a fence. And lastly, I'm not going to put up signs that do not trespass. That looks terrible. So again, I would love, I'm not here to shoot down this. What I'm here to say is that it's way too close to my property, and it's going to promote a cut through. Again, I'll leave you with this. If you look at Eastway, you have Pearl Street, you have Lonetta, you have Franklin. Aren't the great walking? They're not streets that people like to typically walk in. They don't have walkways. They don't have. They're high traffic areas. This is going to promote it even more for people to cut through. And again, I've already seen it. So I'll leave you with that. I'll work with you, and I would absolutely try to come up with a resolution that's equal and fair to everybody, and go from here. But I'm not trying to shut this down. I'm trying to make progress here and make sure that it's a win-win for everybody.
All right. Thank you for your input. And we also have someone named Helena who has their hand raised. Can we give her a chance?
Hello, everyone. My name is Helena Araujo, and I'm actually a resident of 20 Eastway. I'm Will Squiglia's neighbor. And I am also going to pretty much, I have the same sentiment, or my husband and I have the same sentiment as Will, in the sense that we're not here to shut down the trail. We're just very concerned about the location of the trail and its proximity to our backyard. That is the major issue we have with it. And just to give you a little background, we've been at this house for about 3.5 years. Our understanding is that even prior to us being here, and we've looked at certain meeting minutes and everything else, and we've found proof of that, the prior owners of this property had already taken issue with this trail. They had not allowed the access onto Eastway as was requested. Yet this continues to be pushed through. And we've also expressed our sentiment that we had an issue with the location of this trail and, the privacy that's being taken away from us. I understand that last year, I believe it was Miss Kathy Kelly and another town official met with my husband and 2 other neighbors, including Will. And they were assured that the trail would be built away from our backyards and that it would loop back onto Lynetta Lane. Yet the design submitted does not conform to that. The markings are very close to our backyard. It is invasive to our privacy. We do not have a privacy fence due to the conservation land, and anyone walking on the trail would have a view right into our backyard and our pool area. We also feel that this may be dangerous since there will be no lighting and people can hide out back there at night, which is a safety concern. In addition, there may be trees. I'm not sure if you guys are cutting down any trees for this, but other trees may become unprotected. We don't even let our kids out there because we do see a lot of falling branches that come off these trees, and large ones at that. This past winter, a large tree fell and split in half, and it's still there in the woods. Many trees are unstable in the area, and it doesn't feel safe to have people walking through the area. That said, that's not so much our concern. Obviously, we'd be very careful going back there. Also, the trash, which we've heard you mention, the trash situation, not sure if adding a trail is going to take away from the trash. I really feel like, with teens riding, their bikes or walking out, who knows, anything could be out there. I mean, there's already trash out there, cans and things like that, that somehow people have made it back there. Then there's also the fact that this could potentially hurt wildlife. There's a lot of wildlife back here. There are turkeys, there's coyotes, there's snakes, there's deer, there's all kinds of wildlife back here. The major concern we have is the safety. Individuals can potentially gather in this area. We have young children constantly playing outside. We feel that it would be unsafe to have people just lingering in there. That said, there are people already walking through the woods, like Will mentioned, onto Eastway and trespassing through our land where bushes were cut last year and our orange markers were added without our authorization. We just don't feel this is being handled very appropriately. Our quality of life is on the line, especially the residents here on the Eastway side. And it's just so that people can have a small trail when they actually have a much larger trail on the other side, on the Franklin Street side. But again, I'm not too concerned about having a trail. I'm more concerned about its close proximity. And, there's the wildlife, the wetlands, which will now be more likely to be disturbed, which I'm sure you guys have, considered. But we just don't understand how this even got to this point when it was objected to, many times in the past. And it's only taking into account the wants and of the residents on Lynetta Lane without any regard to, what the people that are mainly affected, which is the people on Eastway. We just ask that this trail be, at least rerouted away from the backyards of the residents of Eastway. And if you have any questions, let me know, but this is how we feel about it.
Thank you for your input.
You're welcome.
I do have something I wanted to read, and your comments about not letting your kids play in the woods reminded me of that. It's a book called Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, and it says, at the very moment that the bond is breaking between the young and the natural world, a growing body of research links our mental, physical, and spiritual health directly to our association with nature in positive ways. Several of these studies suggest that thoughtful exposure of youngsters to nature can even be a powerful form of therapy for attention deficit disorders and other maladies. As one scientist puts it, we can now assume that just as children need good nutrition and adequate sleep, they may very well need contact with nature. So I'm sorry to hear that you don't let your kids play in the woods, because that's a valuable experience for kids. I live near the town forest, and the trails near my house that go into the town forest, a lot of the neighbors who live on the trails have actually made their own little connecting trails to get onto the town forest trails because they like to go there. And I really don't think those are cut through trails through their yards. I think they are trails from their yards into the woods to meet up with the trails. And so that the people who live where there is a trail through the woods find it to be a valuable asset to their being able to access the woods. So I would think that possibly the two people who spoke might find that this trail behind their house is valuable to them to be able to go from their yard up to Lynetta Lane and be able to access the Bear Meadow Conservation Land without having to drive there. So, you know, if you think about it that way, it might be a big benefit. And lots of people find that their home value increases when you can write abuts conservation land on your Zillow ad when you are selling your house. Okay, so that's my soapbox. Are there any other members of the general public that are here, or any members of the Conservation Commission that are here that have things they want to say? Tony.
I wanted to ask again, how long is this trail? How many linear feet?
I think it says 1,000 on the description.
Okay, I didn't know if that was just the amount of trail that was going to be worked on, or if that's the total network in this.
When we
this
first
area.
laid it out, I think I guess it was similar to 2 trips around the track at the high school. But now that we've brought the trail, instead of having one complete loop, it connects back into the existing trail. It's probably 1.5 or maybe even a little less than 1.5 trips around the high school track.
And it's approximately 1/2 mile, which is average for our trails in the conservation areas in Reading.
Okay, and what's the area of the property itself?
How many square feet is the property?
Square feet or acres?
All right, hold off on that. I'll check. I'll get it.
Okay.
If you have another question, that would be great.
Are there any other conservation areas in town that have not been segmented with walking trails or boardwalks?
Kathy, I don't know. Not that I know of. Maybe Thalen Bird Sanctuary, but that has trails in it also.
Cedar Swamp.
Yeah, Cedar Swamp. There's an access point to Cedar Swamp. We just haven't developed that trail yet, but I guess that would be one.
I'd actually like to add at this point that wouldn't it be nice if Reading had a connecting trail, a greenway perhaps, that we could walk through Reading between our conservation areas and connect all the neighborhoods. They do that in many communities, and I'm just suggesting that idea.
Yeah, I think in some of the other communities, those are done under some type of a master plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
There is a plan to try to connect Marion Woods to the town forest, for example.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I see a lot of hands still up. Are these people who are asking another question or people who just didn't lower their hands? I think everybody should lower their hands and then we'll start over if people have. Because I can't tell if people want to talk a second time or not. And just be aware that we are getting close to 10 o'clock and we're trying not to have this meeting drag on forever. Okay, Carlo Casciani. Oh, we need to ask you to unmute. Okay.
Thank you. I was hoping that you could bring up the sketch of the plan.
Sure.
Just so that we can view that.
Yep. Hold on 1 second. There it is. Sorry, Carlo. Here we go.
Okay, there it is. Thank you. I can see it. So this is already better than what you had printed for me on Monday, Chuck, because this actually has the lot lines of where we are. And actually, let me start by saying I live at 44 Eastway, which is next door to Will on the other side of Helena. So I know, being here longer than Will and Helena, that the previous owner of Helena's house, that little strip where the green conservation area is, where it's closest to the Y, there's a little strip of land that connects, yeah, right in there. The previous owner of Helena's house was approached by that many years ago, saying, you know, can we have that so that we can access there? And she was very adamant, no, because she had put the pool in, didn't have a fence that would, you know, stop people from, you know, just walking by. And, you know, when her and her family were out there, her kids were out there by the pool. So this is something that Conservation Trails Committee, maybe both, have been pushing for a long time, you know, several years now, trying to get a trail back there. And as Will had mentioned, you know, there's a hole in the shrubs at the end of his driveway so that people can access it, even though there is no public access to that area. So again, if people go off trail up to Eastway, what do we do? What recourse do we have? I guess would be one question. In the description, it said that there was about 1,000 feet of trail. But then I heard someone say it's about a half a mile, which is more than 1,000 feet. So again, I realize it's a sketch, but you know, a half a mile being 2,600 feet and 1,000 feet, I think that's a big difference. So if someone could answer that question also, I would appreciate it.
Chuck, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I measured it out when I wrote the legal ad. I would stick to the 1,000 feet. I'll again, in our
You've gone muted.
So the RDA, when I set the legal ad, I just measured it using the town's GIS system, generally where the trail was going, and it came out to 1,000 feet, and that's what I had wrote up. So half a mile, you know, I'm not sure. I guess, you know, with this plan, it shows where we intend to put the trail. And it's been walked a couple of times, and these are the driest areas available. And I know that Mr. Squiglia asked he doesn't have a problem with the trail, he just wants it away from his property. The topo lines that are on the map that you see on the screen here are, you know, as you get into this area here, it's wetter down in this area. I think this last line is wet, and this next line is probably a foot or 2 feet above where it's wet. So you really couldn't drop it down any further. There might be some room, but this plan is a sketch, and the intention of the Trails Committee is to have a trail that is, you know, sufficient enough for people to have their experience with nature, but not to interrupt any neighbors that are out there. We went through the same process with the Millet, Soms, and Morganland. When we started asking about putting trails, we did the head of the Abidjana River Trail. And every neighbor came out and they told us about how people would be in back with binoculars looking into their houses and things like that. And, you can just imagine, when people are concerned about what's going in, it seems like it's something that's uncontrollable. But once the trail went in over there, and once we started it, most of those neighbors showed up and helped us build the trail and took pictures with us and are still coming out. We're actually doing a bigger project over there now, but a lot of people like to walk that. It's an access between Austin Prep and the downtown. It's a good trail. This trail here isn't as big, but the same precautions were put in place when the leadership of the Trails Committee went out there and marked off where it would go. We need to stay on our property. We need to stay dry. We can't be in the water. We can't alter the wetland. That's what was out there. This plan just shows generally where the trail is. The flags that are out on site shows actually where the trail is going. And like I said, we tried to mark them between the trees. So if you wanted to understand exactly how close it is to your property, you should try to walk the trail and try to understand how we place the flags. I think we did our best to do that. This is what we came up with.
In terms of the half a mile, I think when Chuck and I walked originally from Lynetta Lane down around a larger loop that went through the wetland part that it's not going to go through and all the way back up to Lynetta Lane, I think we figured that was a half-mile walk. But this loop, because it closes sooner and you're covering the same ground on the way out as the way back, the actual trail is more like 1,000 feet. I think that might be the distinction where the half mile was mentioned earlier. Andrew, comments, questions?
Just a comment. I didn't go on the site walk and I'm not really familiar with this, but I do live near the Mallet Trail that has been brought up a few times. And I can say I know the neighbors were concerned about it. And everybody that uses it is respectful of they're not using it to intrude on other people's neighbors. But I hear you in terms of your concerns. But if there's anything that someone's urinating back there, you call the police. That was one of your questions. What do you do? That's a criminal offense. So if there's something that's happening back there that's shouldn't be happening, you call the police. Most of the time, the people are using it to watch birds, take their kids on a walk a dog. That's what Mallet's being used for. Just wanted to put that out there. But I do hear you, but people tend to be pretty respectful of the conservation trails around town.
Okay. Walter?
Yeah, I just took a string and put it on the map and scaled it. It's about 600 feet from Lynetta Lane to the junction, and that lollipop loop is about another 500 feet. So 1,000 feet is a pretty good estimate.
Mm-hmm. I think you're talking about the original GPS that we took before we altered the trail. That was half a mile.
Right.
So I agree, it's 1,000 feet.
Okay. All right. It looks like Helena has her hand up still.
Yes, I apologize. I just wanted to clear something up. I know that we may have had a misunderstanding earlier when I said I do not want my children playing in the woods. I am all for playing in woods that are safe. All I said was these woods specifically, there's a tree that fell this past summer. There are branches that have fallen, and I've told my kids to be careful because of that. situation, not because they shouldn't play in woods. I'm actually originally from Portugal. I grew up all around woods, and my kids are always playing outside. That's what they do. And it's not, that I don't want my kids out there. That's all I wanted to clear up. My major problem with this trail, again, is that it literally is feet from, like not many feet from my pool and my backyard, where I like to have some privacy. And I don't think that's too much to ask for when, I've come to a nice town in a nice neighborhood, and I feel that we should be able to have some privacy in our backyard. So that's my main concern, and that's how the neighbors feel as well.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Can I just answer one of those questions? So the Forestry Department and the Trails Committee will take care of any trees that look hazardous on the trail or look like that they're going to fall on the trail. So that won't be a concern anymore. Obviously there's some time between when we identify them and get the work done, but that's the process that always is followed.
That may be exposing other trees as well, though, because that are potentially protected, but it's still a concern.
Now, there won't be any concern of falling trees. That's handled by the Trails Committee and the Forestry Department. Opening up the area once the tree comes down or a cut, the forestry doesn't cut more tree than it needs to cut. And when light's introduced into an area, typically more vegetation sprouts up.
Okay, Will?
Yeah, I just want to
at 10 o'clock, so we need
Yeah,
to.
I'm gonna make one last comment. You cut me up before, Martha, so I want to just finish this comment, please.
Sure.
One thing I would say, and I think you folks who all recanted and said something, it sounded as if we didn't want the trail. It's not that we don't want the trail. It's not that we don't want our kids playing back there. We're all for the trail. It's your position. It's feet from our property. You may have these other trails that worked out great for other neighbors. That's awesome, well and good. But it wasn't a cut. It isn't where it is. It's strategically located, where Eastway is a big walking neighborhood. And I'll also tell you this and leave you at this. I don't want to get on my soapbox here and talk more and more, but I'll leave you with this. You had the Trails Committee come on my property, rip down shrubs without my permission, and then tell me that, oh, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. You also, the first time I met with Chuck, he told me I needed to move my shed because it was on conservation property. The next time is when we met with Kathy Kelly, who she told us, quite frankly, and Helena even touched upon it, that we wouldn't go close to your property. We're just going to do a little loop 20 yards in, and we're going to come right back up. Listen, if you guys want to win the hearts and minds of us, and you want us to work with us, your communication is terrible. All right? And you wonder why we're up in a tizzy, and you wonder why we're upset, and you wonder why we don't want this. That's just 3 perfect examples. I suggest you guys learn how to communicate a little more effectively and show some respect. Not to everyone out here, but the people that I'm talking to directly. That's all we have to say.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. Are there any other comments from members of the commission, members of the general public who haven't spoken yet, or Chuck or Kathy? All right. All right. Where do we go at this point? Do we have a motion to close this hearing?
This is Brian. Make a motion to close the hearing about the trail off Lynetta Way.
This is Bill, I'll second. Bill and Cancel, I'll second.
Okay. All right. I have a chance for more discussion among just the committee at this point, and Tony has his hand raised. What do you need, Tony?
I'd like to consider whether or not it's really worthwhile to segment every conservation land in town with a trail. This isn't from the map a particularly large property. And I think from an environmental and ecological standpoint, it may not be necessary. It may actually adversely affect wildlife movements, available habitat. There are other places in town where people could walk. This trail doesn't appear to be necessary to connect to another existing trail. I'd like to have a little more discussion on the ecological benefits and detriments of putting in a 1,000-foot trail in such a small area.
So Martha, you have a motion on the floor. You got to close that out. And then
Well,
you
wait a
can
minute.
come up with the rest
We could still discuss, right? Even after we close them.
after you close. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a motion to close. We didn't actually vote on the
Yes.
motion to close. Sorry.
And
I jumped
Andrew
ahead.
Jim, I'm in favor of closing the public
Right,
hearing.
all in favor?
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Skipped the vote. All right. Tony has started the discussion and has this question. Do we have an answer for Tony?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's an answer for Tony. I think that Tony has an opinion about what's going on out there. I don't know if other commissioners share his opinion or they think this is a worthwhile pursuit of putting a trail in. So, I mean, that's where we're at. But answer, no, there's not an answer.
I guess my answer is this is a piece of property that I am responsible for, and I would like to be able to access it to be sure that it is being well cared for. And as Walter and I and Kathy found when we were out there, there are certain stream crossings that really would be greatly improved by having a bridge over them so that we can actually access the property that we are in charge of. So that's my answer is, you know, we are the stewards of this property. It has been given to us. And in order to take care of a piece of property, you need to be able to actually walk on it. Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to say an example from tonight, 2 Maple Street. Access Pineville, as was said, you practically cross over their front lawn. And if you walk the conservation lands around Reading, which I think is very important, you're close to a lot of residences. This, after all, is a town of 25,000 and so forth. So it comes with the territory. And I agree with Martha. This is our charge. We have these conservation lands. Therefore, the community of Reading as a whole. And, you know, we go about it intelligently. But if we're not opening these lands up to the community, I don't think we're fulfilling our charge. That's my comment. Thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, I just want to say something to Tony in particular. And then at that point, I would be done and ready to move on. But as far as do we have to have trails on every piece of conservation land, I don't think that's the question. The idea of having these trails is to encourage people to use them. There are people who won't drive even the 2 miles across town to go to Bear Meadow or Town Forest if there is an available trail in nature that they can walk to that's right there, that's top of mind. It is more likely that people will get out and get all the benefits there are from walking trails on preserved conservation land. So given that, I think that's the motivating factor, and I'm all for this trail.
Andrew.
Hey, Tony, thanks for asking the question. It's well past my bedtime, but it gets my mind churning, so I appreciate that. I don't have an answer to what you're asking. I think it would be helpful for the Trails Committee and whoever else is responsible for thinking about these things to put together a larger plan. So if Kathy, you have it in mind, an interconnected trail throughout the entire community, that would be a great reference point when we're talking about these things in public forums to kind of say, this is why we're trying to do it. This helps get people around. It reduces walking, but I think Tony's point that is this going to do more damage to the little patch of land than and is intended is a fair question, to be honest. I'm not familiar with this particular patch of land to even begin to make that assessment, but I do also think comes with the trail, you get more eyes on the trail, and there are ecological benefits from people going out there cleaning it up because they do tend to be respectful of the land. But I think it's a good question. And I have to trust Chuck and everyone else who's put their hard work into this trail that's kind of where I'm leaning, but I'm glad you asked it.
Hey, Walter.
I suppose there's a compromise where we could eliminate what we call the lollipop at the end of the trail and just have a dead end further away from their properties. But you need a goal as somebody just hiked a lot. If you're going to end a trail, you need a waterfall, a piece of sculpture, something important to put there. But at least that would also give us access to look at what the condition of the property is.
And also in addition to that, Walter, Martha, Walter, we walked it on Sunday, and I think we agreed that we could drop it a little bit away from the property line. We saw an opportunity to do that, right?
We
And
might be able to if we could go one side of the tree or the other, yeah.
Yeah, and that's next to Will's property. We would be able to drop it down away from his, that bump out by his driveway, so we're not so close. So I'm willing, as a Trails Committee Chair, to look at that.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, Bill.
Sorry, very quickly. That's great. And any time we can get a compromise is great. But let's bear in mind, again, look at the totality of conservation lands and trails. How many houses, their back fences, the trail goes right past, or like the property we're talking about tonight, where it goes right by their front lawn. We need to think about equity. Everybody has to share in this. Everybody has skin in the game, if you will. So just want to keep that balance. Thank you.
It is after 10 o'clock. I want to wrap this up.
Let me just
Tony has his hand up, but that's the last one I'm going to take.
I would just argue that there's a difference between conservation land and passive recreation land. And simply, you know, I understand the benefits of opening up certain areas for public recreation, but I think there's also a benefit to the environment for keeping some of those areas a little less impacted and a little more pristine. I don't think this is such a large property that it's so inaccessible that a crew couldn't go in of volunteers every couple of years to pull out tires or washing machines or whatever else ends up there. I'm not convinced that it's the mission of the Conservation Commission to open up every piece of property. I think it can still be maintained and still provide a very high level of habitat. And this is irrespective of any of the property owner issues. I'm looking at it strictly from a standpoint of preserving the ecological value, particularly where it is abutting another area.
Okay.
I think that adds to the value. Thank you.
All right. I think we've had everybody on the commission who wanted to had a chance to speak. I think it's time for a motion and we can move on to the rest of our agenda tonight.
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to approve the trail off Lynetta Way.
Lynetta Lane.
Lynetta Lane, excuse me.
Okay. Do we have a second?
It's Bill McCansell, second.
This is Andrew Driven. I am in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. I appreciate everybody's input and I'm sorry that it's a contentious issue. Okay. Meadowbrook access easement vote. I believe there's nothing on that yet tonight.
There's nothing on that. Nope.
Okay, so old new business, we've got some certificate of compliance requests. My understanding is 38 Westcroft is not coming tonight, correct?
38 Westcroft did not submit an as-built plan, and I haven't heard from that owner applicant. Maybe we'll get something for the 12th. I'll keep the commission informed.
Okay, Lynetta Lane.
Lynetta Lane, we actually have Steve Knight here from Lynetta Lane.
And Walter and I did a site visit on Sunday.
Sure. So being a certificate of compliance, do you have a report and a recommendation?
We thought that the grass looked like it's grown in well. The erosion control has been removed. My only concern is that there are some non-native species that have been planted by the adjacent homeowner right up against the curb at the edge of the cul-de-sac. And I believe that that's still within the 100-foot zone. Were you going to put the as-built plan up?
I was not, but I can.
Okay. So I recommend that we approve the certificate of compliance, but we might want to talk to the homeowner. If the homeowner is here tonight, to let him know that we're really looking for native species within the 100-foot buffer zone.
So I had a question about that. The homeowner planted what you're talking about? Was these or was it the applicant? So this is a contractor that did a subdivision, and you're talking about non-native species, but I'm wondering if it was the homeowner at that address that planted those, or was it the contractor that did that? So that's step number one, because
the homeowner spoke to us when we were there and told us he planted them.
Yes.
Okay.
But it does seem to be on the homeowner's property because it's right along the curve where the stormwater infiltration area is. And I don't know what you're supposed to plant on top of stormwater infiltration areas. There might be something in the operation and maintenance plan about what's allowed to be planted there. But in terms of whether that prevents the certificate of compliance, I don't think it does. It's just a concern that I observed because the 100-foot zone is going across in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And so those plants would certainly be inside the 100-foot zone.
Yes.
Walter.
I think shrubs and trees would be a concern on top of that infiltration.
Yeah, as a
area.
homeowner, I mean, there's so many things you can buy. They're obviously invasive species. I mean, his garden looked gorgeous, but there was a concern about what he put there.
So, Chuck, you said no shrubs and trees on top of stormwater. He seemed to have planted the gladiola bulbs and sunflowers, some of them Mexican sunflowers. So they weren't shrubs and trees, but they are not native.
I said that as a rule of thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, the roots that drive down further into the soil is probably what you would be concerned about. I could mention this to the engineering department. I don't think that I'm not sure, but I could at least bring it to the engineering department and let them know that there is someone has been planting on top of the infiltration unit.
Okay.
And I believe this street will be accepted at some point by the town, so that might be important.
Mm-hmm. The homeowner of lot 4 spoke to us and told us he was going to be at the meeting tonight. If you are the homeowner of lot 4, can you raise your hand so we know if you're actually here? Okay, so maybe he didn't come. Okay. So I would recommend that we issue the certificate of compliance for this property. Is there a motion in that for that?
This is Brian. I make a motion to issue the COC for Lynetta Lane.
This is Bill McCancel, second.
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCancel in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, 10 Plymouth Drive. 3 of us went to 10 Plymouth Drive on Tuesday. Does anybody want to report what we saw? Nope. I am hearing no volunteers. Bill.
Sorry, yes. So we were pleased to see good survival rate in the replanted area. I think perhaps Martha could speak to any concerns about the particular plants, but one thing we noticed that was of concern was there's 15 or more feet of green plastic webbing still in the soil by the resource area, and that definitely needs to go. There's also a portion near the resource area of bare eroded slope that needs some attention. There's some plantings that have been done to try to shore it up, but there's one area that is it's got a slope. It's quite obvious, and it looks like it could be loose soil that could adversely affect the resource area. So those are my comments. Thanks.
The plantings Bill is talking about looked like a couple of squash plants, and the bare pocket of soil is just to the left of the squash plants as you're facing the back of the property. I assume the homeowner is here. Yes, okay. So just so you know, that's what we're talking about. We found 4 blueberry bushes and 5 sensitive ferns that had been planted in that back right corner of the property. And one of the sensitive ferns didn't look like it was doing so well, but the other 4 did look fine. So that's 80% survival rate. So I'm not concerned about that area. It looks like they did a good job getting rid of the invasives and putting in some natives there. And there are stakes along what was the erosion control line at the 25-foot line that I think could be removed. We did find the granite bounds that were marked on the as-built plan. So those are where they were supposed to be. Yeah. So my biggest concern is the green webbing, I think, which must have been a straw wattle or something like that at the back edge of the property.
I'm the homeowner. I'm Colin McKinnon. I can probably locate the webbing and try to remove it. That was a straw wattle. It's kind of decomposed a bit. I could probably get that out tomorrow.
Okay. All right, Walter, you have your hand up.
Yeah, there's a little piece of slope there you just mentioned where some squash plants,
Mm-hmm.
and they had added some soil there. That should be supported much better than it is, because the squash is going to die. It's not going to hold.
Okay, just because of the slope, or
yeah,
I could.
The erode. It's subject. It looks like it could easily erode, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, I can get some soil in there. I just wanted to back up. I'm trying to think of, I don't remember straw wattles. I remember them putting compost sock in that area. Is that what needs to be removed?
It's green nylon mesh that's in a tube, and it's tied in a knot on the left end. You can clearly see that knot like a sausage, a sausage knot. I don't know what was in it, but yeah, you don't want to leave nylon lying around forever.
Okay, and this is the same areas where where the plants are and the slope is.
Yeah, it's between the blueberry and the fern that you planted and the wetland line.
Okay, all right, I'll take a look at it.
Chuck, do we have to have them come back to the next meeting and after they've removed the green, or can we vote for it contingent upon them removing the green webbing and it being confirmed that it's out, and then you can issue the certificate?
I think you're talking about, so my administrator hat on, and I think this is a list that is not going to be able to correct in just 2 weeks, because you're talking about an eroded bank that needs to be stabilized.
Okay.
I think that remove the green mesh, which was probably part of the erosion control, stabilize the bank, plant it if that's what you want to do, but the commission's just concerned about it being stabilized. Contact us when that has happened for a review, and then back to the commission for an approval. That's kind of what I thought from what I heard.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, okay, so the green mesh and the stabilization, and I can contact you when I think that's completed.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you could also contact the office, and we can go out and talk about what's good. I know you have a couple of consultants that worked on your project. You could call them too and tell them you have an issue in one spot and you want to get that stabilized quick. What would they recommend?
Okay, I will reach out to one of the two of them this week, hopefully, and get some answers.
Okay. All right, Colin, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
And meanwhile, he can take the stakes up along the 25-foot line, right? The wooden stakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be done. I was just saving them just to show where the no build line was, but
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Do we have 18 small lane or 22 small lane to look at today? I thought we already voted on 18.
We did, and we want to, I just left that on the agenda by mistake. So that one's taken care of, but 22 small lane, you could vote on that one too.
Okay. And we already talked about that earlier, and their shrubs are going to be part of their new notice of intent. So therefore, given that, we can vote on this certificate of compliance. Correct?
Yes. Well, that's a question for the commission, but you would just ask them if someone wants to make a motion.
This is Brian. I make a motion to issue the COC for
22 small lane.
22 small lane.
This is Bill McCancel, second.
And is there any need for any discussion before we vote?
I felt like you described well what we were doing, Martha, the trade-off that's involved.
I mean, does that make sense to you, Chuck? It's an administrative question, so I mean,
yeah, I think something wasn't finished off. We have a homeowner that has actually moved out, and another homeowner that's engaged in the property at this moment and is willing to take this on. I think we'll get better results from the new homeowners at the 22 small lane than we've seen come in the past. So I support this trade, and if that's what you want to call it, I support that, and I would agree that we can get the original 22 small lane a certificate of compliance and kind of end that process for those two. Reminding you that 18 small lane did a great job at completing what he was supposed to do. And it was the mother or the mother-in-law in that area that didn't come around. So
Okay, so can we vote?
All right, Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, I think we voted on 88 Glenmere, last time.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay,
Again, yep,
all
thanks.
right. And we can skip violation notices. So down to discussion items. Chuck. Do we want to?
There's no correspondence. We don't have enough time for the regulation. And the Terrace Park letter went out. Jane Kinsella, Matt Frenellis, who's the town, who's the, what is this, public service?
Town manager?
Assistant town manager and in charge of public services. He has a new title. I have to learn it better. Put the letter together, sent it out with the help from me and Jane Kinsella. And of course, we haven't heard anything back from that. So we'll have to follow up at our next meeting, and I'll have that on the agenda for either to hear from, let you know what the homeowner said, or we would get Brian and Martha to get back with Matt and say we need some follow-up on it.
And very quickly, I want to keep the regulation proposals all in one document. So unless there's an objection for the next meeting, I'm going to submit an updated document which has the buffer strip language in it for 3D along with everything else. I just think it'll be better for us when we finally get to this if it's all in one place.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I'm available to go to the conservation/DPW meeting on July 11th. If anybody else wants to come, please let Chuck know and he'll send you the link.
It's been
Maybe
canceled.
Brian wants to chime in on that.
So Chuck sent an email saying it's been canceled for July. And the next one will be the second Tuesday in August.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 1st of August. It's actually August 1st.
Okay.
It's the Tuesday.
All
I was
right,
so
I
close.
missed that. Next meeting, August 1. Okay, if anyone wants to go to that meeting, let Chuck know, and you're welcome to join us.
It's a Zoom,
Okay, we
Zoom
have
meeting.
minutes for approval from June 14th, 2003. I sent several comments to Chuck. Did everybody else have a chance to read them?
Okay.
All right.
I missed those, so we have them. They got by me.
Yeah,
Ah.
they were sent out. If you want to, we can delay one meeting if you wanted to read them.
The nice thing is, Andrew, they're short and sweet, but yeah.
They just gotta find them then.
Yeah, so, and would it be good for me to send my comments that I sent to Chuck to everybody so you can all see what I'm offering as amendments to those minutes?
I don't think you can do that.
I can't do that. Okay. So people will have to wade through the minutes themselves and wonder what I found that I thought needed correcting. Okay, we can discuss it at the next meeting. It
Well, you
being 10:32.
I mean, you certainly can discuss it now, and then they can just keep it in their memory. I mean, if you wanted to, or you want to just move on with the meeting.
If we're going to vote on it next time, let me discuss it next time and we'll hope
Okay.
it's before 10:30.
Okay.
All right. So do we have anything else we have to cover or can we adjourn?
I'll make a
Well, notice-
motion to adjourn at 10:32. Please, somebody second that.
Well, do we want to nominate the chair and vice chair? or you wanna wait
Oh,
till
where
we
did
have a
that
space?
go?
Oh,
Did
hey,
I
trying to
skip
get
that
away with that.
completely?
I was
Trying to
trying to get
escape.
away.
Oh, it was just this stuff up above Westcroft.
Ah.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, we can't adjourn just yet. I have talked to Brian. He is willing to be vice chair for another year. I am willing to be chair for another year. If there's anybody else who would like to nominate themselves or somebody else, please speak up. Walter? You have your hand up? You don't have your hand up. You're muted at this point.
I'm okay with both selections. I was just curious, since it's next year, should this discussion be next year?
next year is like July
It's
1st.
our next
Right.
meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so we have to vote today because the next meeting is the new chairs.
But we have different membership. Sorry,
Yeah, it's an
Oh.
interesting point.
I defer to Bill.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I was gonna say is you actually don't have new membership before July 1. As Chuck explained,
No,
you're not actually commissioners until the next meeting.
That's,
So-
that's my point, yeah.
So should
Yeah,
we
so it
reorganize
has
in
to-
2 weeks?
Yeah, it has to be the group now that makes this decision. I enthusiastically endorse, in fact, I'll nominate Martha and Brian for sainthood. But I'm happy to endorse you for this.
Okay,
I'll second
so,
that.
so we have to vote new chair and vice chair before the next meeting starts and we add the new members. Is that the way the term?
If the year starts July 1st and you have to have a chair and vice chair in place by July 1, we have to vote tonight, and it's only the commissioners tonight that can vote.
We've always done it this way.
Okay, all
I
right.
mean, I think this is, even as a matter of fact, I think this is what we were told to do many years ago, but can be mistaken. It seems reasonable to have it on the last meeting prior to the next year. So,
I can only say this is how it was done in Belmont as well.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So, Bill has nominated us. Has anyone seconded that?
I have
Andrew
seconded that.
Okay, Andrew second.
And I'm in favor.
I'm in favor too.
Bill McKinnon's in favor.
And Martha Moore in favor. Okay. Now can we move to adjourn?
I'll try it again. This is Brian, make a motion to adjourn at 10:36.
Okay, yes.
All right.
Yes.
All in favor, turn off your PC.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good 4th, everyone. Bye
Okay.
now.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.